13th. Now, I've always thought that 13 was actually kind of a lucky number. Louise and I started 2 different businesses on the 13th. One was a Friday the 13th, and they both did pretty well. But I don't know, some people are a little spooky about it. But let's try to make it a really great day for fundraising today, okay? Yesterday, we had a good response. Thank you so much for that. After the day before was just like, whoa, almost nothing at all. We really need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this network going. And the sooner you can make a contribution, the sooner we can kind of wrap up the whole fundraising thing and get back to doing our book reports every day. So please give Free Speech TV a call right now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. I'm guessing you probably watched the debates last night. A lot of the ABC stations in this country are owned by Sinclair, and they were running some really, truly reprehensible ads. One that morphed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face into skulls killed by the Khmer Rouge, like she's some kind of mass murderer. This is from a Republican-affiliated political action committee. Another was a health insurance coalition of big pharma and big insurance running an ad saying that, calling health insurance health care when it's not. Health insurance is merely the way that you pay for health care. But just completely scrambling the issue and, lying to the American people in the middle of the Democratic debate. Expect to see a whole lot more of this in the media. And then this morning on MSNBC, you had, Joe Scarborough going, these progressives, they're going to destroy the party. Of course, he's a Republican. And on CNN, the message was kind of the same. How dare they pick on, the Republicans, or really it was, how dare they pick on the so-called centrists. You're not going to hear a message that clearly articulates the progressive point of view and the progressive candidates in the corporate media. You'll find it here on Free Speech TV, but the corporate media, no. The corporate media is going to do everything they can, just like they sabotaged Howard Dean. They're going to do everything they can to sabotage the genuine progressives in this race, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And regardless of who you're supporting, I hope you agree with me that that's just wrong. It shouldn't happen. And yet that's going on in our corporate media. So, let's support Free Speech TV and keep honest voices on the air. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, you get the Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $100 gift, yes, we'll take any functional adult over Donald Trump. That's the T-shirt. It's $50. $100. It's long sleeve, by the way. It comes in sizes small through XXL large. For $150, you'll get an autographed copy of my book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America. By the way, the only way to get an autographed copy of this book is either to show up at a book signing, and I'm only going to be doing 2 of those this fall, or donate $150 to Free Speech TV. Now, that's not to say that the signature is, all that much more valuable. It's, it'll get you an extra $5 or $10 on eBay. But, if you're interested in having an autographed copy of the first edition of The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America, this is the only way to get it, unless you show up at a book signing. Right now, we've got one book for Chicago, but that's it. So then we're planning, a couple more, but we'll see. Anyhow, so that's a $150 gift. With a $250 gift, we have a virtual meet and greet and, an online get-together with people. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. 4 people this afternoon are going to be visiting us. They'll be sitting on a couch over here, and presumably most of them, if the past is any predictor of the future, will bring along a friend or their partner or whoever it may be. So we'll probably have 8 people hanging out here and then going to lunch with me this afternoon. They'll get to meet Nate, they'll get to meet Sean, they'll get to meet Joyce. Dave, our engineer, may drop in. There's a great team here. Patrick and Jerry Lynn in Houston help us out. Nigel and Sue in the UK help us out. I know I'm missing somebody. But in any case, we've got Corey, who's helping with the phone systems. We got a lot of really good people putting together this program today. It's not just me, and every day, and you know, it's a labor of love. I mean, we're working our butts off here, but you know, it also requires something, you know, some small amount of money to keep it going. So, and nothing compared to what Free Speech TV needs. Their budget is much massively larger than ours, and they're still running on this little $3 or $4 million a year budget. So for the entire network with 18 employees and all these shows, it's incredible what they're doing. So a real bang for your buck if you call now and donate to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Your help is very much appreciated, and frankly, very much needed. Let's wrap up the week here on this Friday the 13th with a great contribution. Please. Well, happy Friday. Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak, TGIF, whatever it may be for you. It's Friday the 13th. I kind of like Friday the 13th. And there was a heck of a debate last night. It was absolutely fascinating. We'll be, it's Anything Goes Friday, of course. We'll be taking your calls on winners, losers, you know, whatever you know, your take on what happened last night. I'll be sharing my take with you in a few minutes. Adam Green from the Progressive Change Campaign Committee is going to drop by in a little bit. Tom Perez will be with us at the second hour of our program, and Greg Palast in the third hour of our program about the election that just happened in North Carolina. But first, Senator Bernie Sanders is on the line. We make this, you know, our show is open to all of the presidential candidates. Any of them are welcome to come on. Senator Sanders, we're very pleased that you're here. Thank you so much for calling in this morning.
Well, Tom, it's great to be with you. You'll excuse my voice. It's a little bit hoarse. We had a great rally, some 10,000 people out in Denver the other day, and I think I forgot there was a microphone that would have helped. So there you go.
Okay, yeah, you could tell it in your voice last night, but you know, I've heard your voice that way before. It comes back. So I'm curious, and feel free to tell me it's none of my business. But at one point when Julian Castro was attacking Joe Biden, it looked like you leaned over and said something to him. Something perhaps supportive. I don't know. Do you want to share anything about that incident, or would you rather move along?
Well, all it was, to be honest with you, is I don't think it's sometimes hard when you're up there on the stage to be hearing things. And I don't think Biden had heard what Castro had said, and he asked me what he said, and I told him.
I see. Well, that makes perfect sense. I've been up on stages like that too, and the speakers are all pointing out at the
Tom,
audience.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. You there, Bernie?
Hello?
Hello? You know, Senator? I'm hearing you just fine. Senator? Senator Sanders? Huh. He just hung up. I think he's going to call right back. I know that they had some kind of an audio problem when he called in earlier, so we'll hear from, presumably, we'll hear from Bernie in just a moment. It seemed to me that, there was a third party in the room last night, and or on the stage, or what, you know, whatever you want to call it. There was a third party involved last night, and that third party was the insurance company, or the insurance companies and the big pharma, who had some kind of a PAC, some kind of a political action committee or whatever, that was running ads saying basically, you know, you don't want these crazy socialists to take away your health care. And then, of course, there was an ad. Now, it would have varied. Apparently, only the ABC stations owned by Sinclair ran some of these ads. So this would have been what's considered a local ad, but people all over the country were seeing it. So, you know, and we're still kind of sorting that out. I still haven't heard from, you know, everybody as to exactly what that is and who that is and how that works and all that kind of thing. But it seems like that's the case. And and the other ad was a picture of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face, and then something started burning in the center of her face, burned her face away, and then behind her, this picture of her face that you're seeing in flames, behind that is a bunch of skulls from the Khmer Rouge, the murderous Pol Pot regime. And this was apparently put up by a woman who was a Republican member of Congress who lost the election to a Democrat. And it was utterly, utterly bizarre. So anyhow, it seems to me that was the other player in the room. And so I think Senator Sanders is back on. Senator, can you hear me this time?
1 second, Tom.
No? Oh, potted up. Senator, can you hear me now?
I can. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. Thank you very much. Yeah, for some reason I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me, and I don't know what's going on here. But everything should be good. So, your thoughts on the debate last night?
Well, it's always frustrating that there are so many issues out there, and when you have 10 candidates up there, it's hard to address them all, get the time to address them. But I think, to me, two issues come to the fore. And number one is the discussion that I had with Joe Biden regarding health care. And I am not surprised, but disappointed, that Biden is echoing the remarks of the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit last year, and are doing everything that they can to prevent us from doing what the American people want, and certainly what Democrats want, and that is move to Medicare for all, a single-payer program. And to my mind, we are well beyond the policy issue because it is impossible to defend the dysfunctionality of the current system. We have a system right now, Tom, and everybody has got to understand this. We are spending twice as much per person on health care as do the people of any other country, Canada, UK, France, Germany, etc. Twice as much. And yet we have 87 million people who are uninsured or underinsured. 30,000 people a year die because they don't get to a doctor when they should. And we have 500,000 people going bankrupt as a result of medical bills. How insane is that? We are spending by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. I went to Canada last month. Price of insulin for diabetics in Canada is 10th the price of what it is here in the United States because of the greed and corruption and price fixing of the pharmaceutical industry. So this is a system that cannot be defended. It's a system that is simply designed to make huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies. We have got to move to Medicare for all. I am disappointed but not surprised in Biden's opposition.
Yeah. Senator, it seemed to me, particularly when I forget who was doing the questioning, but in fact, I don't even know these ABC candidates. I think it might have been Jonathan Karl or whatever his name is. But anyhow, he was trying to basically, it seemed to me, get Elizabeth Warren, and by proxy yourself, to make the mistake that Walter Mondale made. And for younger listeners, people who don't remember the 1984 election, a lot of people thought this was the moment when Walter Mondale lost that election. If I can just play this clip, it's about 10 seconds or so, 15 seconds. And I'd love to get your thoughts on the politics of all this. Here's Walter Mondale in 1984 when he was running against Ronald Reagan.
Mr. Reagan will raise taxes, and so will I. He won't tell you. I just did.
And then he goes on to say that Reagan's is going to do it in a way that will hurt working class people, and he won't do that. He'll have his tax increases against the rich. It was almost like they were just like trying to wring that statement or something, some variation on that out of Elizabeth Warren last night.
Well, I don't.
Go ahead.
The answer is, I think you're right. But I don't think they have to wring it out of Biden. I think that is exactly what Biden is trying to do. And this is why this is very disingenuous and dishonest.
Yeah.
And that is right now, I'll give you an example, Tom, and I see this every day. I talk to a guy who works for a big company and has a fairly good health insurance program. He pays $1,000, I think it's a family of four. He pays $1,000 a month in premiums, and he has a $4,000 deductible. So in other words, he is spending out of his own pocket, not to mention his employer, he is spending $16,000 a year in premiums and out-of-pocket expense before his insurance program kicks in. All right?
Right.
Now, you can call those premiums. You can call them insurance company taxes. You can call them whatever you want to call them. Last I heard, though, a premium is dollars. So what Biden is trying to do is say, Bernie is trying to raise your taxes. What he is ignoring is Bernie is doing away with all of those premiums, doing away with all of the out-of-pocket expenses, doing away with all of the co-payments, making sure that nobody in America under Medicare for All will pay more than $200 a year for prescription drugs. Make sure that home health care is covered. Make sure that dental care, eyeglasses, and hearing aids are covered. But getting back to your point, this is the oldest Republican talking point in the world. Oh, your taxes are going up. Well, the truth, though, is that at the end of the day, you're going to be paying significantly less for your health care under Medicare for All than you do under the current system. So I guess if there's one human being in the world who really gets the joy and just loves paying premiums, well, I guess we're going to disappoint that person.
Right.
But most people understand that whether you pay premiums or whether you're paying taxes, the money's coming out of your pocket, and people want to spend less on health care. And on the Medicare for All, the average person will spend significantly less than he or she is spending today.
Senator, we have about 1 minute and 10 seconds before we hit a hard break I can't control. I'm curious your thoughts on the ad that was running during the debate from the health insurance industry, apparently saying that, socialism is a terrible thing.
Hello?
Single payer. Yeah, Senator Sanders? I think we've lost the senator again. Oh, there he goes. Something funky with Bernie's phone, I'm hoping. I don't know if there's some. Oh, really? Yeah. All our phones went blank just now. Everything dropped. Oh, that's not a good thing. Yeah. Check line 1, Joyce. But that's weird. There's something going on here that's a little funky. We'll figure out what it is as time goes on. So anyhow, Bernie said what Bernie said, and I think it was solid stuff. So Ana Navarro, I think, wins the tweet of the day. I think Ana Navarro wins the tweet of the day with she says, regardless of who you support, there's 3 women, 2 African Americans, 1 Asian, 1 Latino, 1 openly gay veteran, a child of Indian and Jamaican immigrants, a Jewish guy, a vegan, and even a couple of straight white guys on that stage. Like it or not, this is America. Bingo. It is. And so we'll be back. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. We'll be right back. Stick around. And welcome back. Senator Sanders, you're back?
Yeah, I am. We seem to have some technical problems.
Yeah, we had our internet provider last night rebooted our entire system, and I'm not sure if I thought at first it was on your end. I'm starting to think it's on my end.
No, I don't. I think
my apologies.
Yeah.
So
that's okay.
So anyhow, we heard everything you said.
What I was just saying is that I'm a little bit tired of Biden echoing Republican talking points, health industry talking points in his attacks on Medicare for All. We can have that debate, but we should not be disingenuous.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you're paying a premium right now, we eliminate that premium. And at the end of the day, we're going to eliminate out-of-pocket expenses, co-payments, and nobody in America will pay more than $200 a year for the prescription drugs they need, because we're going to take on the pharmaceutical industry and stop their greed in which they are charging American people by far the highest prices in the world for medicine. So, we can argue it, but I think Biden's points are really quite disingenuous.
Yeah, and this is really unfortunate. I'm curious your thoughts on the ad that was running on many of the television stations around the country from... Here we go again. You lost me again, Senator? Senator Sanders, we lost him again. We're going to have to reset our phone system. Clearly we've got a problem here, so... and my apologies. We're in fact, we can't fill the break right now. Yeah, we got about 2 minutes. Nate, you want to run back in the back room and just reset the VX, the new system? We're going to restart our phones and see if that solves the problems. Because hey, it's a big phone day. Okay, just some news, some things to share with you. California, this is fascinating and good news, and frankly, it should have been part of the conversation last night, in my humble opinion. California just banned private prisons, including ICE detention facilities. This from Vice News. California just passed a bill banning all for-profit prisons and immigrant detention facilities, for-profit immigrant detention facilities in the state of California, according to The Guardian. It was Bill AB 32, Assembly Bill 32, and it passed Wednesday, day before yesterday, and headed to Governor Gavin Newsom's desk for signing. Assemblyman Rob Bonta, who introduced the bill, said it is a stand against companies, quote, that only care about the almighty dollar. This is a good thing. There are currently 4 privately operated immigration detention centers in California. 2 of them, Mesa Verde in Bakersfield and Adelanto ICE Processing Center in San Bernardino, are run by the Geo Group. This is one of the biggest private prison companies in the country. And together, these 2 Geo Group facilities can hold 1,940 people. So shutting down facilities by the state of California that are running purely for profit, a really good thing. I mean, this is like a really, really, really good thing that we should all be celebrating and applauding and everything else. Anyhow, it's 22 minutes past the hour. We'll be back in just a moment. I've got some more news of the day to share with you, and then and we're going to reset our phones at the bottom of the hour when we've got a break, unless Nate just did that. Joyce, we should both quit out of our software and reopen it, reconnect in just a minute. We'll be right back. It's 22 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and calling into our own phone lines to see if they're working there. Oh, yeah, it looks like they are. Okay. So you can try calling us now. It seems like our phones are working. 202-808-9925 is the telephone number. Some of the takeaways from the Democratic debate. I asked last night on Twitter, Julian Castro went after Joe Biden in a way that I think many people interpreted as an attack on Joe's age or his memory. And, I asked on Twitter, is this going to hurt or help Castro? And there seemed to be a consensus that it would hurt him. And we'll see, right? I mean, time will tell. But it certainly seemed to me that, particularly that the media is certainly trying to make this, Castro will be hurt by this. And the big mistake that Julian Castro made, obviously he was ready, right? See, here's the dynamic that, most people are not discussing. The dynamic is that at the end of the day, the Democratic nominee is either going to be one of the 2 progressives, Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, or it's going to be one of the so-called centrists, Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar, Julian Castro, one of these other candidates that are not quite as progressive as Warren or Sanders. They're not bad. I mean, they're good Democrats, all of them. but they're willing to take corporate money and that sort of thing. It's going to be one of those two things, and they all know this. So basically, Klobuchar and Harris is kind of in a gray area in between the two, because she fully supported Medicare for all, and now she's dialed that back a little bit and said, well, you can keep your private insurance if you want, but if not, Medicare for all, sure, great thing, which actually I think is a reasonable middle ground. But, that's just me. I do think that at the end of the day, we're probably going to get there. But in my opinion, it's also a good thing that Democrats are messaging the way that Republicans traditionally have. That is to say, we're going to ask for everything. We're going to demand everything. We're going to say, this is what we want and this is where we're going. And then, instead of negotiating with yourself, say, this is what we want. And then, you might have to give up a little bit. I think this was one of the mistakes that was made in the whole Affordable Care Act negotiation was, the Affordable Care Act was crafted and it had a public option. And it was brought forward like, here it is, you guys, it's all set to go. Please like it. And frankly, I think that, a much more effective political strategy would have been to say, we're going to go for Medicare for all. It's full out, every single payer, everything. And then what you settle for is the Affordable Care Act with a public option. And at that point, I think probably Joe Lieberman wouldn't have blown it up. But in any case, I think that this is a strong strategy for Democrats to say, damn it, we're not going to take, a half-baked system. We are going to do it the whole way. We are going to do it correctly. And, Medicare for all is where we stand. It's where we're planting our flag. And, we may die here, but this is where we're going to stand. And let's not forget, it was Harry Truman who first suggested a single-payer system. Franklin Roosevelt wanted to do it. He wanted to add it to Social Security, but he concluded that would just be too big a lift. It would be too radical a change all at once. And so he decided to put it off. But he rolled out the same thing, that you have an absolute right to health care in 1944 when he proposed his second Bill of Rights. So Franklin Roosevelt proposed this. Harry Truman proposed it. LBJ, when he passed Medicare, was very clear that he expected Medicare would eventually cover everybody.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And if the health insurance industry made $100 billion in profits last year, that's $100 billion that could be paying for your health care. We'll be right back. The 13th. Now, I've always thought that 13 was actually kind of a lucky number. Louise and I started two different businesses on the 13th. One was a Friday the 13th, and they both did pretty well. But I don't know, some people are a little spooky about it. But let's try to make it a really great day for fundraising today, okay? Yesterday, we had a good response. Thank you so much for that. After the day before was just like, whoa, almost nothing at all. We really need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this network going. And the sooner you can make a contribution, the sooner we can kind of wrap up the whole fundraising thing and get back to doing our book reports every day. So please give Free Speech TV a call right now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. I'm guessing you probably watched the debates last night. A lot of the ABC stations in this country are owned by Sinclair, and they were running some really, truly reprehensible ads. One that morphed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face into skulls killed by the Khmer Rouge, like she's some kind of mass murderer. This is from a Republican-affiliated political action committee. Another was a health insurance coalition of big pharma and big insurance running an ad saying that, calling health insurance health care when it's not. Health insurance is merely the way that you pay for health care. But just completely scrambling the issue and, lying to the American people in the middle of the Democratic debate. Expect to see a whole lot more of this in the media. And then this morning on MSNBC, you had, Joe Scarborough going, these progressives, they're going to destroy the party. Of course, he's a Republican. And on CNN, the message was kind of the same. How dare they pick on, the Republicans, or really it was, how dare they pick on the so-called centrists. You're not going to hear a message that clearly articulates the progressive point of view and the progressive candidates in the corporate media. You'll find it here on Free Speech TV. But the corporate media, no. The corporate media is going to do everything they can, just like they sabotaged Howard Dean. They're going to do everything they can to sabotage the genuine progressives in this race, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And regardless of who you're supporting, I hope you agree with me that that's just wrong. It shouldn't happen. And yet that's going on in our corporate media. So, let's support Free Speech TV and keep honest voices on the air. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, you get the Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $100 gift, yes, we'll take any functional adult over Donald Trump. That's the T-shirt. It's $50. $100. It's long sleeve, by the way. It comes in sizes small through XXL large. For $150, you'll get an autographed copy of my book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America. By the way, the only way to get an autographed copy of this book is either to show up at a book signing, and I'm only going to be doing 2 of those this fall, or donate $150 to Free Speech TV. Now, that's not to say that the signature is, all that much more valuable. It's, it'll get you an extra $5 or $10 on eBay. But, if you're interested in having an autographed copy of the first edition of The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America, this is the only way to get it, unless you show up at a book signing. Right now, we've got 1 book for Chicago, but that's it. So then we're planning, a couple more, but we'll see. Anyhow, so that's a $150 gift. With a $250 gift, we have a virtual meet and greet and, an online get-together with people. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. 4 people this afternoon are going to be visiting us. They'll be sitting on a couch over here, and presumably most of them, if the past is any predictor of the future, will bring along a friend or their partner or whoever it may be. So we'll probably have 8 people hanging out here and then going to lunch with me this afternoon. They'll get to meet Nate, they'll get to meet Sean, they'll get to meet Joyce. Dave, our engineer, may drop in. There's a great team here. Patrick and Jerry Lynn in Houston help us out. Nigel and Sue in the UK help us out. I know I'm missing somebody. But in any case, we've got Corey, who's helping with the phone systems. We got a lot of really good people putting together this program today. It's not just me, and every day, and it's a labor of love. I mean, we're working our butts off here, but it also requires something, some small amount of money to keep it going. So, and nothing compared to what Free Speech TV needs. Their budget is much, massively larger than ours, and they're still running on this little $3 or $4 million a year budget. So for the entire network with 18 employees and all these shows, it's incredible what they're doing. So a real bang for your buck if you call now and donate to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Your help is very much appreciated, and frankly, very much needed. Let's wrap up the week here on this Friday the 13th with a great contribution. Please. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us, we're going to get to your calls. Our phones seem to be working now. We will find out in just a second with Adam Green. He's the co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, the PCCC. BoldProgressives.org is the website. You can tweet him at Adam Green or at BoldProgressive. Adam, welcome back to the program. It's been a while. Oh, what happened? He dropped. Adam vanished. Okay, well, let's see if let's try out our phones here. Dave in Northampton, Massachusetts, listening to WHMP. Dave, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Tom. Hey,
Dave.
Yes, I'm really pleased with how your show over the years has been able to convey, what's really going on in the ground in the political and the economic scene. But, I often wondered if it's possible once a week if you could touch on, say, the science of modern propaganda and the psychology of sociopathic behavior as it relates to leadership, corporate boardrooms, and how corporations work.
We've certainly discussed that a number of times on this program, David.
Yes. I'd be curious to find out if you were able to reference various work that people have specialized in the study of those areas that could, even, you know where I'm going at with this.
Yeah, right to Trump and to the Republican Party and to the corporate oligarchs. I get it. And we've talked about all of them. I've written about all these things, in fact, in numerous op-eds over the year. But your preference for topics is noted, and I appreciate the call. Thank you, David. Bill in Sebastian, Florida. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind?
Yeah, good afternoon, Tom. I thought Bernie did an excellent job last night, and I thought he did an excellent job just now speaking with you on the phone and exposing Joe Biden for the corporatist that he is. I also believe Amy Klobuchar, as well as Delaney, Hickenlooper, and a few others are no more than distractions in this presidential...
Well, maybe not. I mean, Bill, I started to get into a riff about this earlier, and then, I don't recall what it was. I think it was Bernie called in, but whatever it was, I got derailed. But my point was that it specifically and particularly, Amy Klobuchar, Julian Castro, and perhaps a couple of the other candidates on that stage are basically the reason that they're hanging in there is that if Biden fails, if a consensus is achieved among American voters that Joe Biden, isn't quite making it.
I lost you, Tom.
You lost me, Bill? Okay. All right.
I lost you.
Yeah. All right. We've got a problem, and we'll have to fix it. Let's see if we can get Adam Green on here. Adam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Hey, Adam. Your thoughts on last night's debate?
Yeah, so I think when the history is written on last night's debate, there will be seen as a huge gap between what the kind of pundit class saw on TV and what actual voters saw on TV. And I think a lot of the murmur among traditional journalists and pundits gave Biden high scores or said it was kind of a status quo debate with nothing really changing. Whereas I think that, a lot of regular voters probably saw some other stuff with Joe Biden and saw people like Elizabeth Warren looking very presidential, both in what they said and how they compose themselves. As a Warren supporter, I thought that, her getting across her personal story of growing up poor in Oklahoma, being a single mom in Texas, and connecting those to her big ideas really resonated with people. And just some anecdotal feedback I've heard since then really said to me that, those things really resonated with regular people, even if pundits were kind of bored by those issues or those stories.
Right. Adam, as you know, I'm on your mailing list, on your email list, and I noticed that you've been doing some polling on this. What kind of response are you getting from people? Adam? Oh, geez. This is, our my apologies, Adam. I'm guessing he can't hear me. We went through this a while ago, and this is why we got a new phone system. But the new phone system seems to be in limbo. Okay, I'm just going to cover some news stories here. We're going to fill the next break, and I'm going to go back and reset everything. Beto O'Rourke explicitly said, and Joyce, if you can let everybody who's on hold just know that, to call back in a few minutes. Beto O'Rourke explicitly said that he was going to have a mandatory gun, if he became president, he was going to have a mandatory gun buyback for weapons of war. He made it very clear. He wasn't talking about your shotgun to hunt, deer, or your deer rifle, or your, skeet shooting, or your pistol for personal protection. He was talking about weapons of war, AR-15s, AK-47s, that sort of thing. And He said it very, very emphatically last night. It was one of the lines that got the most applause. I mean, it was just an absolutely huge applause line. And in response to that, a Republican in the Texas House of Representatives, a guy by the name of Briscoe Cain, sends a tweet saying, "My AR is ready for you, Robert Francis." Now, Robert Francis are Beto O'Rourke's, given first two names. His name is Robert Francis O'Rourke, and Beto is the Spanish, it's like Bob in Spanish. And, this is, I think, just, this is the real,
He's back on the line.
Sean, we're in a break.
Back on the line.
Okay. Anyhow, Beto is, we're in the break, Sean, right now. If you could please pot it up. Thank you. Okay. We'll be back in just a minute. It's 40 minutes past the hour. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be back in just a minute. I'm going to reset our phone system, so we'll be back. It's the Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from The Undercommons, Fugitive Planning and Black Study by Stefano Harney and Fred Moten. This is from the introduction. It starts with love, exchange, fellowship. It ends as it begins, in motion, in between various modes of being and belonging, and on the way to new economies of giving, taking, being with and for. And it ends with a ride in a Buick Skylark on a way to another place altogether. Surprising, perhaps, after we have engaged dispossession, debt, dislocation, and violence, but not surprising when you have understood that the projects of fugitive planning and black study are mostly about reaching out to find connection. They are about making common cause with the brokenness of being, a brokenness, I would venture to say, that is also blackness, that remains blackness, and will, despite all, remain broken, because this book is not a prescription for repair. If we do not seek to fix what has been broken, then what? How do we resolve to live with brokenness, with being broke, which is also what Moten and Harney called debt? Well, given that debt is sometimes a history of giving, at other times a history of taking, at all times a history of capitalism, and given that debt also signifies a promise of ownership but never delivers on that promise, we have to understand that debt is something that cannot be paid off. Debt, as Harney puts it, presumes a kind of individualized realization to a naturalized economy that is predicated upon exploitation. Can we have, he asks, another sense of what is owed that does not presume a nexus of activities like recognition and acknowledgement, payment and gratitude? Can debt become a principle of elaboration? Moten links economic debt to the brokenness of being in the interview with Stefan Shukatis, who he acknowledges that some debts should be paid and that much is owed, especially to black people, by white people. And yet he says, I also know that it is, that what it is that is supposed to be repaired is irreparable. It can't be repaired. The only thing we can do is tear this stuff down completely and build something new, end of quote. The Undercommons do not come to pay their debts, to repair what has been broken, to fix what has been undone. If you want to know what the Undercommons wants, what Moten and Harney want, what black people, indigenous people, queers, and poor people want, what we, the we who cohabit in the space of the Undercommons want, it is this. We cannot be satisfied with the recognition and acknowledgement generated by the very system that denies A, that anything was ever broken, and B, that we deserve to be the broken part. So we refuse to ask for recognition, and instead we want to take apart, dismantle, tear down that structure right now. That right now limits our ability to find each other, to see beyond it, and to access the places that we know live outside its walls. We cannot say what new structures will replace the ones we live with yet, because once we have torn stuff down, we will inevitably see more and see differently and feel a new sense of wanting and being and becoming. What we want after the break will be different from what we think we want before the break, and both are necessarily different from the desires that issue from being in the dark. Let's come at this by another path. In the melancholic and visionary 2009 film version of Maurice Sendak's Where the Wild Things Are, 1963, Max, the small seeker who leaves his room, his home, his family to find the world beyond, finds a world of lost and lonely beasts, and they promptly make him their king. Max is the first king the wild things have had, whom they did not eat, and who did not, in turn, try to eat them. They're the first grown things that Max has met who want his opinion, his judgment, and his rule. So anyhow, as I was saying, Beto O'Rourke, this guy, this Republican from the House of Representatives in Texas, said, "My AR is ready for you, Robert Francis," and he reported it to the FBI. Cory Booker last night was talking about Joe Biden essentially fumbling things. And this is my point. I'd say Cory Booker is another, and you could kind of see the gears running in his head. I was watching CNN's coverage or their commentary after the debate last night, and and they were interviewing Cory Booker, and they said, well, what did you think about what happened when Julian Castro tried to take him on? And essentially what he said was, well, again, literally what he said. He said, Castro has some really legitimate concerns. Can he be someone in a long, grueling campaign that can get the ball over the line? And he has every right to call that out. That's what Castro said. And at that point, then the person questioning him said, well, are you talking about his age? And at that point, then Julian Castro says, no, I'm not talking about his age. He's been like this for years and years. And, as I said this yesterday or the day before, that this is the third or fourth time that Joe Biden has made a serious run for the White House. And every time in the past, he has managed to put his foot in his mouth enough times that, people ended up basically not taking him seriously as a candidate. So, there is something going on there. Cory Booker went on, with regard to this whole discussion, and Booker, and as I said, Booker and Klobuchar and some of the others are basically, if Biden takes himself out of the race one way or another, or if Biden starts falling in the polls, there's going to be a need for somebody who is not Bernie or Elizabeth to pick up that mantle of being the centrist Democrat who can work with Republicans and, quack, quack, quack. And each one of them is hoping it's going to be them. So you've got yes, you have Warren and Sanders, on the progressive side, tying up about 40% of the vote. And in a way, they're competing with each other. I mean, if one or the other of them was to drop out of the race, the other person would immediately have almost twice as much support as Joe Biden has right now. And in fact, more than Joe Biden and all the other centrists combined. But that's not how the race is working. So Bernie and Elizabeth, their principal competition is each other, because they're both speaking to the base of the Democratic Party. The so-called centrists who think that they're reaching out beyond the base, those folks are the ones who are basically, Biden is holding that space. Joe Biden is holding that space, and they are hoping that if anything, if Joe decides to drop out, or if Joe starts falling in the polls, or if Joe makes some gaffe that from which you can't be recovered, something that goes way beyond saying, when you're raising your kids, you want to have the record player on at night. That's relatively minor, but something major that might blow up his candidacy. They want to be there to catch those voters, and those voters, by the way, are the ones who are. Many of the, quote, those voters are the people who have a whole pile of money, a lot of money, who are willing to do high dollar fundraisers and who are willing to support a candidate. And, they're the people who were supporting Barack Obama. One of the things that is yet to be seen is whether it's possible, if our nominee is Sanders or Warren, is whether they can compete in an actual general election with small dollar contributions, or whether they're going to have to reach out to, large dollar donors. My guess is that the way that they could play that is the campaign itself would only do small dollar donations, and you would have a bunch of peripheral political action committees that would be running ads essentially on their behalf, but not coordinating with them. That would be running. So I think it's entirely possible, but we'll see. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is facing some serious legal challenges as the federal courts have revived the Emoluments Clause case. Now, this was a lawsuit that was brought by Citizens for Ethics in Washington crew, and a couple of people who are parties to the lawsuit who run restaurants in Washington, D.C. And what they were alleging is that the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. is unfairly competing with them because the President of the United States continues to own that hotel, and it is basically an open secret in Washington, D.C. that if you want to suck up to Donald Trump, go to his hotel and drop a bunch of cash. The Saudis rented an entire floor of the hotel when they came to visit, and hundreds of thousands of dollars a night, or some mind-boggling amount of money like that. And so, what they said in this lawsuit is that he is violating the Emoluments Clause, and in the process of violating the Emoluments Clause, he's presenting us with unfair competition. An appeals court or a federal district court said, no, this is not, you don't have standing, basically. This is not a legitimate case. And that got, that was almost a year ago. And so it kind of got set aside, but the people who were filing the lawsuit, crew and these two restaurateurs, said, we're going to continue. And so they took it to the appeals court. And a U.S. appeals court in New York, by a 2-to-1 vote, and it'd be interesting to see who appointed those judges. Increasingly, our entire judiciary is just basically, an arm of the Republican Party, and has been heavily politicized over the last 20, 30 years. This is the essence of my book, my new book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. But anyhow, this Lawrence Tribe is a Harvard law professor who's helping bring this case to court, and he says, this is huge. He says, we just won our Emoluments Clause appeal against President Trump in the Second Circuit on behalf of hotels, restaurants, and restaurant workers injured by Trump's unconstitutional and corrupt acceptance of foreign and domestic business. So, this is exactly, by the way, the kind of corruption that the founders had in mind when they put the Emoluments Clause into the Constitution. And it is the kind of corruption that frankly, I think, not just the Emoluments Clause, but I think that the Impeachment Clause is there for, and something that we all need to pay attention to. A few other things in the news that directly or indirectly tie back into all of this, into the debate, and maybe our phones are working again. Our engineer's on his way in, but let me just try and see what happens. Colleen in Long Island, New York. Colleen, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. So what's on your mind?
Okay, I hope you're having a good day. There are so many things that can be discussed about this discussion last night, this debate situation. And, it's hard when you have all those different candidates and they don't really get a chance to drill down into the issues. So you just kind of cover the surface moments. But right. I still come away with Bernie and Elizabeth. I like Buddha. I should say Pete, but I like him. I think Kamala would make a great AG, but I'm not sure about the, nomination situation with her. Mm-hmm. But Corey kind of drifted around. Biden I still have the same issues with him, is that he's not focused. He wants to give you the information he wants to give you, and he's not directly answering the questions. the only thing with Elizabeth that I found is that she kind of danced around the Medicare issue.
Well, she danced around saying your taxes will go up because she didn't want to have that Walter Mondale moment that I played for Bernie.
Right. No, and I heard that, and I agree with you. But you have to be a little bit more specific because you keep giving generalities. People are going to just get frustrated. And I think at the end of the day, what they walked away with was a draw for most of them. I think we kind of saw Amy drifting away and Julio and Andrew just not being, I want to say, really in the thick of things.
Yeah. And Andrew Yang, I mean, he's been perceived by and large as a single-issue candidate. There was an interest, I tweeted it out last night, in fact, a fascinating piece that Sam Cedar, a friend and colleague who does a podcast called Majority Report, that Sam Cedar did a couple of days ago, that where they were basically listening to Andrew Yang himself in an interview that he did with a libertarian. And Yang was saying, well, if everybody gets $1,000 a month, then we can do away with all these social welfare programs, from Social Security disability to food stamps to everything else. These are not the specific and literal words that came out of Yang's mouth, but it was the essence of what he was saying. And this libertarian guy was like, yeah, cool. So, destroy the social safety net. Well, the fact of the matter is that for somebody on Social Security disability, $1,000 a month, frankly, probably isn't enough. And, I
think you're right, because it almost sounds like a bribe, for one thing.
Right.
And what's going to keep it in place? We have the social services network, or social safety nets.
Right.
And they are really in place.
Yeah. So the question is Andrew Yang a conservative or a libertarian stalking horse, I guess? I don't know the answer to that question.
It's kind of hard. He's hard to define and hard to place where he fits. But like I said, I think he's an outlier. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he's really a serious contender. I think that he has a lot of potential for some place in the cabinet, but not the main situation.
Yeah, I think you're right. So anyhow, thank you, Colleen, for the call. Great observations in all points, and it appears that our phone system is now once again working and stable, and that's good news too. So we'll be back with Anything Goes Friday. We do have a couple of guests who are going to be with us as we go through the show here. So stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
The 13th. Now, I've always thought that 13 was actually kind of a lucky number. Louise and I started two different businesses on the 13th. One was a Friday the 13th, and they both did pretty well. But I don't know, some people are a little spooky about it. But let's try to make it a really great day for fundraising today, okay? Yesterday, we had a good response. Thank you so much for that. After the day before was just like, whoa, almost nothing at all. We really need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this network going. And the sooner you can make a contribution, the sooner we can kind of wrap up the whole fundraising thing and get back to doing our book reports every day. So please give Free Speech TV a call right now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. I'm guessing you probably watched the debates last night. A lot of the ABC stations in this country are owned by Sinclair, and they were running some really, truly reprehensible ads. One that morphed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face into skulls killed by the Khmer Rouge, like she's some kind of mass murderer. This is from a Republican-affiliated political action committee. Another was a health insurance coalition of big pharma and big insurance running an ad saying that, calling health insurance health care when it's not. Health insurance is merely the way that you pay for health care. But just completely scrambling the issue and, lying to the American people in the middle of the Democratic debate. Expect to see a whole lot more of this in the media. And then this morning on MSNBC, you had, Joe Scarborough going, these progressives, they're going to destroy the party. Of course, he's a Republican. And on CNN, the message was kind of the same. How dare they pick on, the Republicans, or really it was, how dare they pick on the so-called centrists. You're not going to hear a message that clearly articulates the progressive point of view and the progressive candidates in the corporate media. You'll find it here on Free Speech TV, but the corporate media, no. The corporate media is going to do everything they can, just like they sabotaged Howard Dean. They're going to do everything they can to sabotage the genuine progressives in this race, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And regardless of who you're supporting, I hope you agree with me that that's just wrong. It shouldn't happen. And yet that's going on in our corporate media. So, let's support Free Speech TV and keep honest voices on the air. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, you get the Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $100 gift, yes, we'll take any functional adult over Donald Trump. That's the T-shirt. It's $50. $100. It's long sleeve, by the way. It comes in sizes small through XXL large. For $150, you'll get an autographed copy of my book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America. By the way, the only way to get an autographed copy of this book is either to show up at a book signing, and I'm only going to be doing 2 of those this fall, or donate $150 to Free Speech TV. Now, that's not to say that the signature is, all that much more valuable. It's, it'll get you an extra $5 or $10 on eBay. But, if you're interested in having an autographed copy of the first edition of The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America, this is the only way to get it, unless you show up at a book signing. And right now we've got one booked for Chicago, but that's it. So then we're planning, a couple more, but we'll see. Anyhow, so that's a $150 gift. With a $250 gift, we have a virtual meet and greet and, an online get-together with people. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. 4 people this afternoon are going to be visiting us. They'll be sitting on a couch over here, and presumably most of them, if the past is any predictor of the future, will bring along a friend or their partner or whoever it may be. So we'll probably have 8 people hanging out here and then going to lunch with me this afternoon. They'll get to meet Nate. They'll get to meet Sean. They'll get to meet Joyce. Dave, our engineer, may drop in. There's a great team here. Patrick and Jerry Lynn in Houston help us out. Nigel and Sue in the UK help us out. I know I'm missing somebody. But in any case, we've got Corey, who's helping with the phone systems. We got a lot of really good people putting together this program today. It's not just me, and every day, and it's a labor of love. I mean, we're working our butts off here, but it also requires something, some small amount of money to keep it going. So, and nothing compared to what Free Speech TV needs. Their budget is much, massively larger than ours, and they're still running on this little $3 or $4 million a year budget. So for the entire network with 18 employees and all these shows, it's incredible what they're doing. So a real bang for your buck if you call now and donate to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Your help is very much appreciated and frankly very much needed. Let's wrap up the week here on this Friday the 13th with a great contribution. Please. It's the Thom Hartmann University Book Club. Today we're reading from the Undercommons, Fugitive Planning and Black Study by Stefano Harney and Fred Moten. This is from the introduction. It starts with love, exchange, fellowship. It ends as it begins, in motion, in between various modes of being and belonging, and on the way to new economies of giving, taking, being with and for. And it ends with a ride in a Buick Skylark on a way to another place altogether. Surprising, perhaps, after we have engaged dispossession, debt, dislocation, and violence, but not surprising when you have understood that the projects of fugitive planning and black study are mostly about reaching out to find connection. They are about making common cause with the brokenness of being, a brokenness, I would venture to say, that is also blackness, that remains blackness, and will, despite all, remain broken, because this book is not a prescription for repair. If we do not seek to fix what has been broken, then what? How do we resolve to live with brokenness, with being broke, which is also what Moten and Harney called debt? Well, given that debt is sometimes a history of giving, at other times a history of taking, at all times a history of capitalism, and given that debt also signifies a promise of ownership but never delivers on that promise.
Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Anything Goes Friday. We're talking about the Democratic debates last night and your thoughts on that. It seemed to me that at the very least, we've got at least 4 good, solid candidates for vice president. I think we've got all excellent candidates for president as well. But my point on this is that typically the vice president's job on a ticket is either to balance the ticket geographically, like LBJ did for Jack Kennedy, or to be the attack dog, the person with the shiv, the person who goes in and sticks it into their opponent, while the candidate, the person running for president, kind of rises above it all and speaks about here's where we're going to go and here are our grand visions, and then the vice president is out there just doing slashing the competition, the opponent aggressively. And I think that what we know now is that Julian Castro can do that. Whether he survives last night, we'll see. Certainly Kamala Harris can do that. Pete Buttigieg, I think, is quite capable of that with his dry wit. He might make a great vice presidential candidate if he doesn't make it to president. All of these are, kind of on that caveat of if they don't make it to president. And so we'll see. And like I said, I think that the so-called moderates are just, waiting for something to, for Joe Biden to put his foot in his mouth one too many times or something like that. But picking up your phone calls here on Anything Goes Friday, Michael in Imperial Beach, California. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, Mr. Hartmann, long time no talk.
Yeah.
Okay, anything goes Friday. I want to talk about Mitch McConnell.
Okay.
Okay, now Kentucky has a population of 4.5 million, whatever, and it seems like Mitch McConnell's one of his basic points to run his campaign for re-election in 2020 is that he's going to let Oleg Deripaska build an aluminum plant in Kentucky to give basically, I'm going about 1,000 people a job. Now, we sanctioned Oleg Deripaska. Mitch McConnell relaxed it. So how can this man, Mitch McConnell, isn't he really the elephant in the room? Trump is nobody. Trump is a jokester. Mitch McConnell controls everything. Correct, Tom?
I think Mitch McConnell controls an awful lot, and this is how he earned the title Moscow Mitch, and he's continuing to earn it as you point out, Michael. I'm with you, and it's a big deal. I mean, it really is a big deal. Barbara in Sun City, Arizona. Your thoughts, Barbara?
Okay, well, I think Bernie Sanders is a little bit disingenuous himself. I'm on Medicare. Mm-hmm. If you make over, I think, 11 or $1,200 a month, you have to automatically get $200 taken out of your Medicare check to pay for Part B. And
you
then
mean out of your Social Security check?
Yeah, your Social Security check.
Right.
And then you're making $1,000 a month to live on, and you have to pay for your prescription drugs.
Yeah, if I could just pause you there for a second, Barbara. Both Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan and Elizabeth Warren's Medicare for All plan, and frankly, the plans that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I'm not sure the details of Pete Buttigieg's, but those plans, they're all saying, we need to reinvent Medicare so that there's no more deductibles, so that it does cover things like teeth and eyeglasses and hearing and mental health. And we need to do that not only for our seniors, but to make that available as insurance for everybody else in the United States. So nobody is saying, let's take the existing Medicare system with all its warts and problems and 20% being paid for by private health insurance and all that other stuff. Nobody is, to the best of my knowledge, I mean, I may be wrong on this, but I don't think so. I don't think anybody is saying, let's simply take that system and use that.
Well, I think the problem and why people are, going with Joe is that they're afraid of exactly what they have. I mean, what we have is horrible. And it's just a bad Medicare.
I'm paying a lot less for Medicare now, even with the copay, even with the Medicare supplemental. And I've had nothing but really great service from Medicare.
Well,
I've been on it for 3 years.
But you need the supplemental, otherwise you can't afford.
Of course, but that's still, I mean, my supplemental plus what's taken out of my Social Security check together are not more than a couple $100s a month. That's about what Canadians pay for health care. And it's what people in most civilized countries pay for health care, is between $150 and $350 a month, depending on their circumstances. And which is nothing like that. I was paying premiums of over $1,000 a month for my health insurance just a few years ago when I was on private health insurance. We were running it through United Healthcare, as I recall. And in particular, because both Louise and I had surgery for cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get that part. But I'm just saying we better fix what's not working for the seniors, because I'm in the senior community, and a lot of people don't get a lot of money in Social Security.
Yeah, I know.
And then they end up.
I'm absolutely with you. I'm absolutely with you, Barbara. And this I think is why Elizabeth Warren's plan to raise everybody's Social Security by $200 a month right off the bat by lifting the cap is well received and a brilliant one. Barbara, thank you for the call. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, Kenyatta, what's up?
Well, your phone system is what's up.
Yeah, it seems to be working now. My apologies.
Listen, no worries. Listen, and it's really weird, but Tom, I wanted to, and I promise I'll be brief. I didn't see the debates last night. Unfortunately, I had to work. But I did hear the snippets this morning from the various networks, and this big deal made about Julian Castro's comment.
Right.
Now, it seemed really weird to me, because when I looked at the recordings of it, it was, he said it, and then there was this great gasp by the audience. It seemed almost rehearsed. And I got to tell you, Tom, it reminded me of the only person that could have gotten me to the polls in 2016, what happened with Bernie Sanders and the DNC. I hate to say this, but it seems like the fix is in, and as you know, we have talked before. I don't, as far as I'm concerned, being a black man in the United States, neither party has served me well, but I certainly don't want to see Agent Orange again.
Yeah.
But it really seemed, the reaction from the media to his comment seems to be way overboard. Am I misinterpreting something here?
I think that there is a circle the wagons mentality in the media for and I don't think it's specifically Joe Biden. I think it's for any candidate who is not saying break up big corporations. I think the media is basically a monopoly in the United States. Ben Begdickian has documented this with his book, The Media Monopoly, and he passed away, and so it hasn't been updated in a number of years. But starting back in the 80s, every year they came out with a new edition, and we went from literally over 10,000 owners of newspapers, magazines, radio, and television stations in the United States in the late 70s to now where it's like 50 or 60 companies own the vast majority of everything. And in individual industries like radio, it's 3 companies. In television, it's 4 companies. You know, among newspapers, it's, I think, 5 or 6 companies. In magazines, it's fewer than a dozen. And so, you know, when you've got candidates who are saying these are monopolies and these are destructive to democracy, then that media infrastructure is going to do everything it can to protect its own interests, and its own interests are represented by candidates who are taking money from them.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When I got a little bit of an echo here, Tom, I'm sorry. You know, when that happened, the first thing, and I hate to say this, but the first thing I thought about is Donald Trump sitting there eating some Kentucky Fried Chicken, watching it and going, the fix is in, the system is rigged. I mean, you know, it's just, and I know I'm not the only person that saw that way. Now, I got one really quick question for you that's totally divergent, and that's this. Whatever happens with the 2020 election, are the Democrats thinking about the fact that we will be living as a country with Donald Trump for decades after he leaves? And what I mean by that is the stacking of, there was a Supreme Court decision a few days ago that was 7-2, Tom. You've got a 2/3 majority, and these are young judges that he's put in, and he may be looking at, if he gets a second term, he may be looking at 2 more appointments, because I suspect that Clarence Thomas will probably step down during the Trump administration, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg may just have to. I mean, we could be looking at Trump for another 30 years.
Yeah. And yesterday or the day before, Donald Trump tweeted out a Trump 2024 bumper sticker. You know,
my God.
Yeah, I'm sure he's saying he was just trolling people, but, you know, that's what happened. So, Kenyatta, thanks a lot for the call. Tom Perez is on the line. Tom, we got you in a little late. I'm going to hit a hard break here in a minute and a half. What are your thoughts on what happened last night?
Well, we had a great discussion of issues, Tom. I think people saw our deep bench, and people understand that, you know, there are differences of how candidates approach how we get from where we are now on healthcare to universal healthcare, but everyone wants to get up to the summit of the mountain. Everyone wants to make sure that if you have a pre-existing condition, you can keep your coverage. You know, everybody on that stage is 1,000% better than Donald Trump.
Amen.
And I'm proud of the deep bench that we have there. I'm glad we're talking about issues of race. I'm glad we're talking about how to reduce gun violence. I'm glad we're talking about how we ensure that we are a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. The Democrats are fighting for so many of the issues that are just front and center in who we are as a nation and what we are as a democracy. And the energy there in the arena was electric. There's opportunities here in Texas, actually, and we did this debate down here because Texas, believe it or not, is an emerging battleground. Just a poll came out the other day. 47% of the voters said that they're going to vote for the Democrat for president. 42% they're going to vote for Trump here in Texas. So his divisiveness is being noticed across this country.
Yeah, I think he has done a really good job of exposing exactly how corrupt the Republican Party has become. I mean, he's just the poster boy for this. Tom Perez, the chair of the former U.S. Secretary of Labor, chair of the DNC. Chairman Perez, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't get there sooner.
That's quite all right. Come back another time when we can have a little more time. I look forward to it. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll be back. It's 18 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We'll be back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around. And welcome back. Ruben in Sherman Oaks, California, listening on KPFK. Hey, Ruben, what's up?
Yeah, I know that Sanders and Warren stand where they stand on about 80% of the issues. I have no problem. I have no idea where Biden stands. I went to his website. Unless you sign up, you cannot find out his positions.
Really?
Also, he's too lazy to verbalize them. He keeps saying, go to my website, and you can find out. I don't want to sign up. I also do not expect, I expect lies from Republicans. I do not appreciate his dishonesty regarding Medicare for all.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's not unique to Joe Biden. That position, that anti-Medicare for all position, has been taken by other candidates as well. Essentially, Amy Klobuchar was echoing that, for example.
Yeah, but he's running first.
Right.
He's top three. He also never asked Bush and Cheney how they would have paid for the disastrous Iraq war.
Right.
And that he voted for, and Sanders did not.
Yeah. Yep. These are a lot of the things that are going to go into the equation that's going to determine whether the base turns out for a Democratic candidate. And I would say that it goes even beyond just not just his voting for the Iraq War, and for the first 6 months anyway, his cheerleading for it, but his voting for the bankruptcy bill that made it impossible for students to declare bankruptcy on student debt. His support for a number of things, criminal justice reform.
You're absolutely right. That's why if he becomes the nominee, I will not vote for him.
Well, I think if he becomes the nominee, we all have to vote for him. My concern is, Ruben, if he's the nominee, that there's a lot of people who are simply not going to vote, just like happened in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was the nominee. If we get another, middle-of-the-road corporate Dem, running for president, Al Gore was, running as essentially a middle-of-the-road candidate. George W. Bush won. We could debate that, but George W. Bush ended up president. John Kerry was running as a middle-of-the-road president. It didn't work out all that well. George W. Bush won re-election. Barack Obama campaigned as a progressive, as had Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's New Covenant speech and Barack Obama's Hope and Change were explicit calls to the progressive base. Now, neither of them delivered on very much progressive legislation, and I think you could argue that Bill Clinton had a much greater opportunity to do so. Barack Obama only had 74 days where he had a filibuster-proof Senate, and in that period of time, he got a lot of good stuff done, including the Affordable Care Act, which the Supreme Court then later took apart, and now Trump is destroying. But the fact of the matter is that when Democrats run as progressives, as Clinton did and as Obama did, whether they're progressives or not, when they take progressive positions, or whether they can deliver on them or not, people will show up and vote for them. But when Democrats run as kind of Al Gore, John Kerry, middle of the road centrists, they don't win.
I agree with you. Obama's legacy is Trump.
Well,
Clinton's legacy was George Bush.
Yeah, I would not lay this. I would not lay Donald Trump at the feet of Barack Obama at all. And there's a lot of skeezy stuff that happened with this election as well. But I think that what's happened, Ruben, is we are now in an era where Democrats, where a large chunk of the Democratic Party, at least half, genuinely want a progressive candidate. Ruben, thank you for the call. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at TomHartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at TomHartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at TomHartmann.com. TomHartmann.com. Welcome back. Anything Goes Friday here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Josh in Boulder, Colorado. Hey, Josh, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I was so excited to hear the moderators bring up the Amazon forest fires and pointing to its connection to our diet. I think it may be the first time veganism was ever brought up in a presidential debate. But I was so disappointed with Cory Booker's response. He said no, and then repeated the translation in Spanish, no, making a joke of it. Now, I don't know if he's just scared of Texas. Austin's a great vegan city, but he could have followed up with some information on how our diet does affect climate change or our health. He could have even brought up his own animal welfare plan, which is pretty extensive. Why do you think he fumbled this question?
Because everybody from Rush Limbaugh to Donald Trump have been pounding on this idea that the Green New Deal and the Democrats more generally want to take away your light bulbs, your plastic straws, and your hamburgers. And this has been a problem in the Democratic Party for a long, long time. Republicans come out, they make outrageous claims. They used to do it just around the word liberal, for example. Democrats stopped using the word liberal from the middle of the Clinton administration right into the middle of the Bush administration. And then they kind of replaced it with progressive tentatively. It's this, let's pussyfoot around. Let's be really, really careful. Let's be very cautious. And I agree with you. I think, Cory Booker had an opportunity to actually tell the truth about climate last night and say, yeah, the second, third, or fourth leading cause of carbon emissions into the atmosphere is our agricultural system. Is explicitly, I say third or fourth largest because if you identify animal agriculture, all agriculture might be the second or third, depending on whose numbers you're using. This is substantial. And he could have said, you don't have to become a vegan like me. He could have said, if you just take one meal a week and don't eat meat, just have a vegetable-based meal, one meal a week. If everybody in America did that, it would make a difference.
He could have even said it would make a difference, but I don't plan to legislate it. But right now, it's unfortunate.
Meatless Mondays. Meatless Mondays are actually taking off. It's and now you've got Burger King selling their Impossible Burger, and Del Taco has got Impossible Tacos, and the Impossible, of course, is the meatless hamburger replacement. And the other company, Beyond Meat, is their stock has just exploded. It's going all over the place. Go ahead.
And unfortunately, the headline on Yahoo is Booker a vegan on whether Americans should follow his diet? No. And Fox has a similar headline, and it's just unfortunate that he didn't take the opportunity to speak some truth.
Yeah, I'm with you, Josh. Josh, thanks a lot for the call. We'll be back with your thoughts on the debates last night as we continue through the program. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Anything Goes Friday. We'll be right back with more of your calls, helping you win the water cooler wars. The 13th. Now, I've always thought that 13 was actually kind of a lucky number. Louise and I started two different businesses on the 13th. One was a Friday the 13th, and they both did pretty well. But I don't know, some people are a little spooky about it. But let's try to make it a really great day for fundraising today, okay? Yesterday, we had a good response. Thank you so much for that. After the day before was just like, whoa, almost nothing at all. We really need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this network going. And the sooner you can make a contribution, the sooner we can kind of wrap up the whole fundraising thing and get back to doing our book reports every day. So please give Free Speech TV a call right now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. I'm guessing you probably watched the debates last night. A lot of the ABC stations in this country are owned by Sinclair, and they were running some really, truly reprehensible ads. One that morphed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face into skulls killed by the Khmer Rouge, like she's some kind of mass murderer. This is from a Republican-affiliated political action committee. Another was a health insurance coalition of big pharma and big insurance running an ad saying that, calling health insurance health care when it's not. Health insurance is merely the way that you pay for health care. But just completely scrambling the issue and, lying to the American people in the middle of the Democratic debate. Expect to see a whole lot more of this in the media. And then this morning on MSNBC, you had, Joe Scarborough going, these progressives, they're going to destroy the party. Of course, he's a Republican. And on CNN, the message was kind of the same. How dare they pick on, the Republicans, or really it was, how dare they pick on the so-called centrists. You're not going to hear a message that clearly articulates the progressive point of view and the progressive candidates in the corporate media. You'll find it here on Free Speech TV, but the corporate media, no. The corporate media is going to do everything they can, just like they sabotaged Howard Dean. They're going to do everything they can to sabotage the genuine progressives in this race, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And regardless of who you're supporting, I hope you agree with me that that's just wrong. It shouldn't happen. And yet that's going on in our corporate media. So, let's support Free Speech TV and keep honest voices on the air. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, you get the Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $100 gift, yes, we'll take any functional adult over Donald Trump. That's the T-shirt. It's $50. $100. It's long sleeve, by the way. It comes in sizes small through XXL large. For $150, you'll get an autographed copy of my book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America. By the way, the only way to get an autographed copy of this book is either to show up at a book signing, and I'm only going to be doing 2 of those this fall, or donate $150 to Free Speech TV. Now, that's not to say that the signature is, all that much more valuable. It's, it'll get you an extra $5 or $10 on eBay. But, if you're interested in having an autographed copy of the first edition of The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America, this is the only way to get it, unless you show up at a book signing. Right now, we've got one book for Chicago, but that's it. So then we're planning, a couple more, but we'll see. Anyhow, so that's a $150 gift. With a $250 gift, we have a virtual meet and greet and, an online get-together with people. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. 4 people this afternoon are going to be visiting us. They'll be sitting on a couch over here, and presumably most of them, if the past is any predictor of the future, will bring along a friend or their partner or whoever it may be. So we'll probably have 8 people hanging out here and then going to lunch with me this afternoon. They'll get to meet Nate, they'll get to meet Sean, they'll get to meet Joyce. Dave, our engineer, may drop in. There's a great team here. Patrick and Jerry Lynn in Houston help us out. Nigel and Sue in the UK help us out. I know I'm missing somebody. But in any case, we've got Corey, who's helping with the phone systems. We got a lot of really good people putting together this program today. It's not just me, and every day, and it's a labor of love. I mean, we're working our butts off here, but it also requires something, some small amount of money to keep it going. So, and nothing compared to what Free Speech TV needs. Their budget is much, massively larger than ours, and they're still running on this little $3 or $4 million a year budget. So for the entire network with 18 employees and all these shows, it's incredible what they're doing. So a real bang for your buck if you call now and donate to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Your help is very much appreciated, and frankly, very much needed. Let's wrap up the week here on this Friday the 13th with a great contribution, please. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you. It's Friday, taking your calls. John in San Francisco. Hey, John, thanks for listening to Real Talk 910. What's up? John? You are on the air. John is not listening to his telephone. Let's try Dave in St. Paul, Nebraska. Hey, Dave, you're on the air.
Hey, Tom. Finally got through. My question was, and I've been waiting in vain, I'm sure, for somebody to ask the candidate if they will prosecute or pardon the previous administrations for their lies and sins. That would be breaking precedent with anything that's happened since, 68?
Yeah, since Jerry Ford pardoned Richard Nixon and refused to continue prosecutions. Ford pardoned Nixon. Clinton chose to ignore the crimes of Bush and Reagan, including Iran-Contra, and Bill Barr's pardons, that covered that up. Barack Obama chose to ignore the war crimes that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney committed. And, obviously, all of that led, in my opinion, directly to Donald Trump. I mean, just to the lawlessness of this administration. I would be astonished if any of these candidates became president and went back and prosecuted any of those guys. But I think that if we don't prosecute Trump, obviously through the impeachment process, and if a serious consideration is not given to prosecuting many of his cronies who are working for him and with him in ways that are arguably illegal, I think that it's not a good thing for America. Dave, thanks for the call. Rob in Mesa, Arizona. Hey, Rob, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking the call. Sure. Hey, I just usually when the word socialism comes up from the opposition, I usually fight back by just saying, what, you against the military? Because basically it's fully controlled by our government.
Yeah, it's entirely socialist.
I thought, then I got to thinking, I'm trying to get another angle on it, and it's like, well, our government doesn't own corporations, but it defines all the rules and regulations for that. But when you form a corporation, you basically file papers, make yourself CEO, president, or whatever, do all your paperwork. So my question for you is, what government function or category would you call a corporation? It's like a little mini dictatorship.
Yeah, corporations are kingdoms, essentially. They're kind of left over from feudal days and, only installed via capitalism instead of installed via war or violence. And, but if you want a better analogy for explaining socialism to people, say, you're opposed to fire departments? You don't want to have publicly owned fire departments? You're opposed to Social Security? You're opposed to Medicare? I mean, if you're really opposed to all those things, if you really hate socialism, then I'm not sure that there is any developed democracy where you could go live. Is there? Is there any country in the world that has ever prospered without some level of socialism?
Right, and I usually jump to kind of along that same line of like, what, you want everything privatized? You want a toll on every street you drive on? You want every park to be privately owned. You want everything to be privately owned so that every move you make, you have to pay to some profit-making company.
Right, and if you asked that question, by the way, of David Koch when he was alive, he would have said yes.
Right, yeah, and I know that's the whole
objective. It's the platform he ran for vice president on, essentially. But Rob, I think that all of us need to do what we can to take back that word, but at the same time, I think that we need to also highlight the positive values going forward. Rob, thanks for the call. TC in Missouri. Hey, TC, what's up?
Good afternoon. My frustration is not with Donald Trump. He's a racist. My frustration not with the Republican Congress. Majority of them are racist. My frustration not even with the Trump supporters. Majority of them are racist. My frustration is with the so-called liberal news media, which we know is a lie. For the last 12 years at least, since 2007, the news media as a whole seems like they're afraid to challenge these Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that what happened in 2007, Tea Party. Why did the Tea Party come along? Barack Obama.
Yep.
And the news media as a whole did not, and they still not challenge these Republicans or Donald Trump. And that's what my frustration is. If these so-called professional news people and journalists, and if I as a layman would have a follow-up question, you trying to tell me so-called professional journalists, they act like they're afraid to challenge these Republicans. Now, they do challenge Democrats when they get them in front of them. For example, with Nancy Pelosi yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But they seem like they're afraid to challenge these coward male Republicans.
Yeah, I'm with you, TC. I'm absolutely with you, and this has been the case with the media for a long, long time. It goes back to a strategy that was put together by a Republican consultant called "Work the Refs." And they started pounding, and this was back in the 80s. This was during the Reagan administration. Started pounding on the media, started pounding on NPR and public television, started pounding on the big networks, saying, "You guys, liberal bias, liberal bias, liberal bias," to the point where they were, looking up and seeing which reporters had supported which candidates or made contributions to candidates, all that kind of thing. So all the networks, made rules that you may not make contributions to political candidates. Everybody got gun shy because the Republican, this work the referees strategy was so successful, and it continues to be successful. I'm with you. Maine in Chicago. Hey, Maine, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Tom? I just wanted to talk about how what's behind Biden and his corporate Democrat. People have to realize that's big business and money, and they're trying to cover their greed or their exploitation of the people through putting up people like Biden up there who are money over people. Like I gave a formula. You either money over people or people over money, and Biden is money over people.
Yeah, let's be clear here. The Republican Party and Donald Trump and all these other, all these Republicans, and it's not just the Trumpkins, are absolutely money over people. I don't think that that's the case with Joe Biden or any of the Democrats up there. I think they're willing to put people first. The problem is that when there are very, very large corporate powers who they perceive might take them down or might challenge them, they get timid. It's not that they're putting money over people. It's that at certain levels they're afraid of, to confront money. And maybe it's a legitimate fear. I don't think so, but I get what you're saying.
That comes with fascism. Then that's where we go. We into fascism, a dictatorship.
Yeah, no, I get it, man, but it's Joe Biden is not the enemy. The system is the enemy. No. Paul in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Hey, Paul, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I watched a solid 2+ hours of the debates last night, and I'd like to point something out that I think has been a long-term problem with the Democratic Party as a whole, undermining its ability to really maintain a broad coalition. The two main issues that I watched last night was the Medicare for All and gun control. And at the one point, you had obviously the Medicare for All proponents, such as Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, saying it's Medicare for all, it's for everybody, and we're going to finance this to make sure everyone has access to doctors and hospitals. And then you had I think as you correctly pointed out, the Republican talking points started saying, look, I believe the American people know how to spend their money better than we do. If they want to have choice, they need to have the choice.
Right.
They can spend the money.
This is
on
also the
themselves.
argument, by the way, that
Yeah.
George W. Bush made in 2005 for privatizing Social Security. People should have a choice whether or not to have a retirement plan.
But here's where they undermine themselves. In the very next major issue of gun control, you people aren't smart enough to know what you're doing with your own money to go out and buy these guns. You're not going to have them. We're going to ban these guns. We're going to take your guns.
Right.
Now, you can't be talking out of both sides of your mouth because the public at large realizes that. And Amy Klobuchar, she emphasized the point. She came point blank and said, a house divided can't stand. And she understands where this is going. It's not just a little technical tweaking of messaging. It's bleeding an ability to put together a coalition, and the Democratic Party has to put together a coalition that it can maintain and sustain into the future. And you're not going to do it by adopting the moderate, you know what to do with your money. Yeah, I know what to do with my money if I want to buy a cheesesteak or a pretzel, but not on the level of social policy.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, Amy Klobuchar was really speaking to, when she said that, she was, chastising Julian Castro for going after Joe Biden. But, I think and she was quoting Jesus. But that said, it's a point that's well taken. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We're going to check in with Talk Media News in just a minute.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We're going to check in with Doug Christian in just a few minutes and find out what's up in the world. Stick around. And welcome back. Kathy in Tacoma, Washington, watching us on Facebook Live. Hey, Kathy, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So, did you hear about the Greenpeace action yesterday?
Was that what interrupted the debate?
I don't. Well, I did hear Joe got heckled some. I
I'm
don't
still
know what
trying
that
to figure
was about.
out who that was and what they said. Maybe Doug will know.
Tom, what happened yesterday was Greenpeace did just an amazing, breathtaking action.
Mm-hmm.
They suspended, I've heard reports of 11, I've heard reports of 24 activists off of the bridge, and they blocked the Houston Ship Channel for 12 hours.
Wow.
And, yes, and because I'm a citizen journalist here in Tacoma, we have, some major things going on here.
Yeah.
And so I'm fascinated with media. Plus, in graduate school, I studied mass communication and political campaigning. And so I'm just fascinated with power, and it's all about the media because so many people only consume TV. I live in a disabled senior building, and that's the case. If they get any news, it's from TV, which is largely why even I, until a couple of years ago, didn't know anything much about climate, didn't really know what fracking was or anything. And then, 6 people, including a grandmother and a great-grandmother, locked down in the Port of Tacoma where Puget Sound Energy had started to dig for this tank that they've now been building for over 2.5 years without a permit, this 8 million gallon LNG tank. It's actually going to be a frack gas refinery. So, yes, we're in a crucible here. We also have within 2 miles of that a 1,575 bed detention center, the Northwest Detention Center. So there's no question that we are, in the crucible.
Yeah, and a lot going on there. And so, Kathy, thank you for letting us know about that Greenpeace event. That's a good one. Robbie in Portland, Oregon. Hey, Robbie, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, can you hear me all right?
Faintly. It sounds like you're driving, but that's okay. What's up?
Hey, all right. So I just wanted to say I think it's really sad. I think the 2016, I watched the debates. I think Bernie did a great job. I'm really happy that you had him on. But then to have Tom Perez literally say that, echo the big pharma thing about how people want their Medicare coverage, the existing coverage. It's a shame because, and I got a proposal for you, and I know you're going to disagree with it, but let me get the proposal out. You're a person who says that we need to vote blue no matter who. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, check this out. For you and everybody who says that, we need to vote blue no matter who, don't vote in the primary. Over 50% of the voters that you tasked on here wanted Bernie
Well, I'm
Sanders.
not just going to vote for some random Democrat in a primary, Robbie. I'm going to vote for a progressive in every single case.
What is vote blue? What is vote blue for no matter?
It means in a general election that I'm not going to vote red. I'm not going to vote for a Republican, and I am going to vote.
And before you blame me for electing Trump, my whole state voted for Hillary Clinton. So don't hate the player.
I'm not blaming anybody for anything, Robbie. I'm just saying that whoever is running against Donald Trump, I'm going to vote for them. I'm not willing to take the chance that Donald Trump gets another term. I think it'll be the end of democracy in the United States, and I think that'll spread all over the world, and it'll be extraordinarily destructive. Robbie, thank you for the call. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour. We're going to check in with Doug Christian at Talk Media News and find out what's up in the world today. Stick around. We'll be right back. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at TomHartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at TomHartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at TomHartmann.com. So let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's up in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com and Loving What You Do, a book by Ellen Ratner. On the line with us from Washington, D.C. is Doug Christian, the White House correspondent for Talk Media News. Hey, Doug, what's happening in the world today?
Well, just to pick up on what you talked about on climate change, and you said about the difference that 2 degrees Celsius can make. The other day I was reading that, in fact, the difference in temperature between now and the Ice Age, on average in the world, how much was that?
I don't know. I'm guessing it's less than 3 degrees, but I don't know.
5 degrees.
5 degrees? Okay.
5 degrees.
Yeah.
So just a small amount can make a huge difference.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And also, it's not evenly distributed around the world. I mean, there's large chunks of the Northern Hemisphere now, the most northern parts of the Northern Hemisphere, that are well over 2 degrees Celsius warmer right now on a functionally permanent basis. And this has got a lot of scientists freaked out.
Well, they should, because the thing is that, 5 degrees caused glaciers to be a mile high over much of North America. Certainly in the other direction, we'd see equally
and we're seeing glaciers all over the world melting, and it's going to be leading to mass famine and climate refugees when the Ganges dries up and when the Nile dries up and these other rivers that are basically fed by glaciers. So what's in the news today?
Let's talk about guns. Yeah. Let's talk about guns. Right now, while the Senate has come back into session, there is a push by Senate Republicans warning Trump not to go soft on background checks. And Ted Cruz said yesterday that if Republicans strike a deal with Democrats to require all firearms sales over the internet or gun shows to go through background checks, they would demoralize their conservative base ahead of next year's presidential elections. And
I don't think that's true. I think they would actually strengthen their base. I think they would bring some moderates into their base, and they would. And the other big group that Republicans are losing badly right now is white suburban women. And guns and the whole gun control issue is a big piece of why those women are deserting the Republican Party. So I think their advice is completely wrong. I think it's entirely motivated by dollars from the NRA, don't you, Doug?
Well, the NRA is pushing very hard on this. And, of course, the Republicans are scared because right now the win in North Carolina was not a win that would reassure Republicans because it was only just a few percentage points.
It was 4,000 votes, and in the next hour we're going to have Greg Palast on talking about how the voter suppression efforts, closing polling places, strict ID laws, all these other things, that the voter suppression efforts in North Carolina suppressed more than 4,000 votes in that specific election, in that specific congressional district.
That's exactly right. And of course, one thing we've got to talk about is health care and what Trump is looking to do if he was able to overturn the ACA or what we know as Obamacare. And of course, he's not looking for a program to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he is advertising, he's branding his healthcare initiative to go after vaping and opioid addiction. So he's made announcements this week to do that. We should also talk about worldwide. Who is the World Health Organization is now warning that they are severely depleted in funds to fight Ebola. They only have $55 million pledged, and that only takes them to this month. It's about 1/5 of what they actually need to combat the virus that is so deadly. So while it seems far off on the horizon, it's something that if it came to the United States, people would know it very quickly, just how dangerous that virus is.
Yeah, well, we had all that hysteria around it when George W. Bush was president, Obama was president, when somebody with Ebola came to the United States, and the Republicans were just, wringing their hands. I mean, just totally freaked out. You had Chris Christie, remember, locking that nurse up because she had worked in an Ebola ward in Africa.
There was no evidence that she had Ebola. There's none, but she was actually confined
it's pretty amazing. So, Doug, I'm looking for some news. What is anything happening in Washington, D.C. that we need to know about?
It's very quiet right now. I mean, we're right after it was a very busy week. I mean, I just told you about.
Today's everybody's gone home today, right? Because it's Friday.
Absolutely, right. And of course, everybody's exhausted from Trump's.
So, any idea with Jerry Nadler? He's starting these impeachment hearings Monday. Do we know what's going to happen?
He's going to push forward, and Nancy Pelosi is saying this is not a good idea politically. And there's a divide between moderates and progressives in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, on a bunch of different levels. I get it. Doug Christian with Talk Media News. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks.
Yeah, good talking to you. We'll be back. We're going to check in with Greg Palast, find out what happened in the 9th District of North Carolina, and then we'll be taking your calls.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
The 13th. Now, I've always thought that 13 was actually kind of a lucky number. Louise and I started 2 different businesses on the 13th. One was a Friday the 13th, and they both did pretty well. But I don't know, some people are a little spooky about it. But let's try to make it a really great day for fundraising today, okay? Yesterday we had a good response. Thank you so much for that. After the day before was just like, whoa, almost nothing at all. We really need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this network going. And the sooner you can make a contribution, the sooner we can kind of wrap up the whole fundraising thing and get back to doing our book reports every day. So please give Free Speech TV a call right now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. I'm guessing you probably watched the debates last night. A lot of the ABC stations in this country are owned by Sinclair, and they were running some really, truly reprehensible ads. One that morphed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face into skulls killed by the Khmer Rouge, like she's some kind of mass murderer. This is from a Republican-affiliated political action committee. Another was a health insurance coalition of big pharma and big insurance running an ad saying that, calling health insurance health care when it's not. Health insurance is merely the way that you pay for health care. But just completely scrambling the issue and, lying to the American people in the middle of the Democratic debate. Expect to see a whole lot more of this in the media. And then this morning on MSNBC, you had, Joe Scarborough going, these progressives, they're going to destroy the party. Of course, he's a Republican. And on CNN, the message was kind of the same. How dare they pick on, the Republicans, or really it was, how dare they pick on the so-called centrists. You're not going to hear a message that clearly articulates the progressive point of view and the progressive candidates in the corporate media. You'll find it here on Free Speech TV, but the corporate media, no. The corporate media is going to do everything they can, just like they sabotaged Howard Dean. They're going to do everything they can to sabotage the genuine progressives in this race, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And regardless of who you're supporting, I hope you agree with me that that's just wrong. It shouldn't happen. And yet that's going on in our corporate media. So, let's support Free Speech TV and keep honest voices on the air. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, you get the Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $100 gift, yes, we'll take any functional adult over Donald Trump. That's the T-shirt. It's $50. $100. It's long sleeve, by the way. It comes in sizes small through XXL large. For $150, you'll get an autographed copy of my book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America. By the way, the only way to get an autographed copy of this book is either to show up at a book signing, and I'm only going to be doing 2 of those this fall, or donate $150 to Free Speech TV. Now, that's not to say that the signature is, all that much more valuable. It's, it'll get you an extra $5 or $10 on eBay. But, if you're interested in having an autographed copy of the first edition of The Hidden History of the Supreme Court, The Betrayal of America, this is the only way to get it, unless you show up at a book signing. Right now, we've got 1 book for Chicago, but that's it. So then we're planning, a couple more, but we'll see. Anyhow, so that's a $150 gift. With a $250 gift, we have a virtual meet and greet and, an online get-together with people. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. 4 people this afternoon are going to be visiting us. They'll be sitting on a couch over here, and presumably most of them, if the past is any predictor of the future, will bring along a friend or their partner or whoever it may be. So we'll probably have 8 people hanging out here and then going to lunch with me this afternoon. They'll get to meet Nate, they'll get to meet Sean, they'll get to meet Joyce. Dave, our engineer, may drop in. There's a great team here. Patrick and Jerry Lynn in Houston help us out. Nigel and Sue in the UK help us out. I know I'm missing somebody. But in any case, we've got Corey, who's helping with the phone systems. We got a lot of really good people putting together this program today. It's not just me, and every day, and it's a labor of love. I mean, we're working our butts off here, but it also requires something, some small amount of money to keep it going. So, and nothing compared to what Free Speech TV needs. Their budget is much, massively larger than ours, and they're still running on this little $3 or $4 million a year budget. So for the entire network with 18 employees and all these shows, it's incredible what they're doing. So a real bang for your buck if you call now and donate to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Your help is very much appreciated and, frankly, very much needed. Let's wrap up the week here on this Friday the 13th with a great contribution, please. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com and you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Well, we had an interesting election in North Carolina's 9th. This was the election where the original Republican candidate back a year and a half ago had hired a guy to go around collecting absentee ballots from people, and if they voted for Democrats, throw their ballots away. And so the Republican victory was thrown out, and a new election was held. Donald Trump went down and held a rally and promoted the heck out of it. And a lot of us thought Dan McCready, the Democrat, might actually win, but instead Dan Bishop, the Republican, won, and I put that in quotes, by 4,000 votes. Into this fray steps our old buddy Greg Palast, the investigative journalist, author, filmmaker. His most recent, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, and which you can even see over on Amazon Prime and all that kind of stuff. GregPalast.com is his website. You can tweet him at Greg_Palast, just like I'm Tom_Hartmann. And Greg, welcome back.
Glad to be with you, Tom.
So you're one of the best guys at telling the undisclosed story, the hidden history, what's really going on. What actually happened in this election in the 9th District of North Carolina that allowed that caused, or whatever the appropriate word is, a Republican to win by a mere 4,000 votes?
Okay, it was daylight robbery, Tom. I have been investigating North Carolina as I was investigating Georgia for the past 6 years for Rolling Stone, Al Jazeera, and Salon. And we did a massive investigation in North Carolina. You have to understand that the 4,000 votes supposedly won by Dan Bishop is absolutely the result of massive Jim Crow racial vote suppression tactics. In particular, the fatal bullets were fired by our old friend Chris Kobach's cross-check.
Really?
And so it's been reported correctly that that cross-check is now dead. We killed it, Tom. You're welcome. And however, it's still removed well over 100,000 people in North Carolina, a massive number in the 9th. And I just wrote something at GregPalast.com about this. When I went to North Carolina, you have to understand, I saw Kim Strake, who was the head of their Board of Elections. Now, it's supposed to be nonpartisan, And so she says she said she was nonpartisan in removing voters. However, her husband was the general counsel for the Republican Party of North Carolina.
Oh, my God.
That's how nonpartisan it was. And she was the one who allowed the steal of the 9th congressional district in the first place by 900 votes by that illegal absentee vote harvesting.
Right. So, Greg, if I could just pause you in mid rant here. We're constantly getting new viewers and listeners to this program, and so a lot of people may be listening to this conversation and they have no idea what you're talking about when you say Chris Kobach and when you say cross-check. In a minute or so, can you encapsulate or summarize what interstate cross-check is, who Chris Kobach is, and why and how this thing got to North Carolina to throw people off the ballot, off the ability to elect, off the voting rolls?
Okay. Chris Kobach, a Republican operative, Trump's vote thief in chief, he was Secretary of State of Kansas. He sent out to about 30 states lists of voters he claimed were registered in 2 states or voted in 2 states, which is a felony crime. He sent over 500,000 suspect North Carolinians to this Republican hit girl, Kim Strake, running the voting operations of the state. Over 500,000 suspects for double voting or double registering. She went before the legislature and gave absolutely perjured testimony saying she had 100% proof that at least 155,000 people in North Carolina, by the way, overwhelmingly black voters, had also voted in Virginia and other states, and she had their Social Security numbers. She even hired an FBI agent to go and arrest them. He worked for 1 year and couldn't find a single double voter. However, in the meantime, they removed somewhere close to 200,000 voters from the voter rolls of North Carolina because they were on this cross-check list, and I met some of them. I went to North Carolina for Al Jazeera and Rolling Stone, like Antonio Thomas Hayes, who is supposed to be the same voter as another guy named Hayes in Virginia with a different middle name. And if you go to gregpalast.com, you can actually see the hit list that the Republicans used, and you'll see that the people I said voted twice or registered twice in 2 different states, almost none of the middle names match.
Wow.
But what you do know is almost all those names are of African Americans. I went to one home after another, after another, after another. Black, well, Hispanic sometimes, Asian sometimes. In other words, Democratic blue voters.
Right.
That's the main way that they were purging the lists, and to prevent people from getting back on the rolls when they showed up and said, oh, my God, my name isn't here. The state used to have same-day voter registration. So if your name is missing, you can just simply re-register when you went in to vote.
Right.
The GOP legislature took that away. There was no longer same-day registration. So if they steal your vote, you can't correct their racial hit on you. If you're erased, you're erased. The other thing is Reverend William Barber, Common Cause, NAACP, and other groups have gone to court to try to fight a list of nasty Jim Crow tactics to cut the vote, and it way overwhelms the so-called 4,000 vote majority of Dan Bishop, which was minimal. For example, they used to give high school graduates a registration form when they graduated. That's not allowed. Not only that, it's illegal to register a student on a high school campus or a college campus. In other words, they're treating it like selling crack cocaine, giving out a registration form. And they cut early voting. 70% of black people vote early in North Carolina. 70%. So they cut back the period of early voting. These are the games. These are just some of the games. It goes on and on. You should read their 60-page lawsuit or go to my website and at least see the summary of the information. I mean, it was such a racist raw steal, and yet, except for Stacey Abrams, you still don't have the Democratic Party leadership talking about elections being stolen by racial vote suppression.
Yeah, it should have been brought up in the debate last night, frankly.
Yeah, I know. And this one of the problems. I mean, the good news, by the way, I want to announce that Stacey Abrams has graciously hired my entire expert team to go into federal court in Georgia to make her explain her case about why the election was stolen from her, but also to stop future steals. I would love to see that from the North Carolina Democratic Party.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you talked to anybody in North Carolina? Any
Well, not the Democratic. Yeah, I've talked to Democratic politicians. I actually talked to one Democratic politician. He said, "Oh, Kim Strake is a very straight shooter. She was great. She was fired because of the theft of the ninth a few months ago when she was caught red-handed doing nothing about it." But this is a Democrat saying that the wife of the chief counsel of the Republican Party is nonpartisan.
Right.
Didn't complain about the false testimony about crosscheck. So you just don't have, you have a strong Democratic Party. It's a purple state. And you now have a new Democratic Elections Board. But I don't see them taking any action to reverse the Jim Crow tactics.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Democrats across the country really need to know this information, and they need to, stand up and fight back. Greg Palast, the website, gregpalast.com, P-A-L-A-S-T. You can tweet him at Greg_Palast, and his latest work, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, an amazing documentary. Greg, thanks so much for dropping by today.
You got it. Thanks, Tom.
Good talking with you. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's Anything Goes Friday. Post Democratic debate. We'll pick up your comments, thoughts, suggestions, complaints right after this. And welcome back. Let's see here. Carol in Eagan, Minnesota. Hey, Carol, what's on your mind today? Thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
Oh, hey, Tom. In relation to the debate last night, I'm holding myself back because I want to give everybody a good chance, and everybody has a good day and everybody has a bad day. But as for your Amy Klobuchar things, I vote for her because she's a Democrat. I do not vote for her because she is in any way, shape, or form the kind of Democrat that I am.
Right, but she's not at least toxic. I mean,
right.
So
right. But I have come up with the people in the middle, and they're saying, well, I'm moderate and I'm in the middle, and I'm going, but if you're in the middle, you have to. The only way you can compromise with a Republican is to move right. Is that really what you want to do, or do you want to move a little bit more left, so that at least when you're negotiating, you're not going over to the enemy?
Right. Yeah. I would say, what does the middle mean? I mean, does that mean that you really want corporations controlling our healthcare system, or the delivery of it, the payment of it? Does it mean that you want Social Security to be privatized? Does it mean that you want Medicare to be privatized? Does it mean that you think that fire departments and police departments should be privatized? Do you really think our roads should be privatized? I mean, these are obviously mostly Republican wish lists, but this is the direction that people are going when they're embracing corporate power and calling themselves centrists.
Yes, and they're not. There is no such. I think that when people talk about the divided country, well, we operate best when we're a divided country. If you look at the period from 1932 to 1980, we were a very divided country, and we operated very, very well.
Well, I would say actually we weren't so divided. We were still operating under Keynesian economics, so we were still operating under the New Deal. Even Republicans, I mean, Dwight Eisenhower in '56 ran for re-election on the fact that he had expanded the number of people who were members of unions, and that over 2 million people had been added to Social Security.
And he was pro-Medicare. He was pro universal health care.
Yes.
So when I say divided, I mean there were the Republicans and the Democrats were different parties, but nothing like today. With the Republicans, I think they must drink something that makes them insane.
They're drinking money. They're drinking money from the Koch brothers and other right-wing billionaires. And it is making them insane. You're absolutely right. And I mean, up until the 1980s, the Republican Party, by and large, you could argue that some of this started with Nixon, but I think it really went on steroids with Ronald Reagan. Up until the 1980s, you could find Republicans there were even progressive Republicans. You had moderate Republicans like Nelson Rockefeller, who, in '64, when he got up and gave that speech about moderation is a good thing, and then Barry Goldwater said, no, radicalism, fanaticism in the pursuit of liberty is no vice. And he got, this screaming applause, and Nelson Rockefeller got shouted down at the '64 Republican Convention. That was the beginning. Yeah. That was when the crazies really started to take over the Republican Party, the John Birch Society and all these other guys. But they didn't really acquire that power. They didn't really seize the party until 1980. And ever since then, Republicans have refused to go along with anything reasonable with Democrats. And now they won't go along with anything, period. So, Carol, good point on all of them. Thank you very much for the call, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV there in Minnesota. We'll be back. It's coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is a lot of content, a lot of specific information that we go through and we dig out and, we want to share with you. And Sue puts that into our newsletter every week. And I think you will, if you don't already receive our newsletter, it comes in email every day, about an hour after we're off the air, or maybe a couple hours after we're off the air. And Sue goes through and pulls literally every link to every story that we talked about and puts it into the newsletter. It's free. We don't sell a list or anything. You complete safety and security. There's no charge. There's no nothing. Just, plug in your email address over at thomhartmann.com. And you get signed up for the newsletter. It's all fairly obvious. You'll see it on the website. So check it out, thomhartmann.com. Thank you.
I think the estimates of the actual cost for the test were like $100.
Friday, talking about what's happening with the with the debates last night, with the election and everything that's going on. JP in Bozeman, Montana. Hey, JP, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Before I get started, I just want to preface what I'm going to say by saying that I've learned more from your program than any college education that I paid thousands of dollars for.
Cowabunga. That's it. Wow. Thank you.
It seems like, I know of Bernie Sanders because of this show. And it seems like we have some very different candidates running in the Democratic Party. And a lot of people are seemingly self-censoring to avoid appearing like a circular firing squad.
Yes. And broadly speaking, I think that's a good thing. Although I did speak out after the climate summits. I was so shocked by the way that Joe Biden performed. I felt like, I had to say something. But last night he had some good moments. He had some kind of shaky moments too, but we'll see where it goes. It's up to the voters ultimately.
I tried to. My phone kept me from being able to contribute to Elizabeth Warren's campaign early in this primary, but since then she's gained a lot of momentum, and as a second candidate, I totally support her. But there's a huge difference between her and Bernie. And the biggest is that she's already pledged to accept big corporate money in the general. Mm-hmm. And there's, as far as my definition of fascism, it's the corporate.
How do you know that that's true, JP? I have not heard that anywhere. So, it's like somebody else called in earlier and said, Joe Biden's website, you got to sign up in order to see anything. And Nate went on Joe Biden's website, and all his policy stuff was there. So just because somebody calls in and says it.
No, she explicitly said so on the Young Turks.
Yeah, well, I think that if you're, A, that's not enough for me, and B, as I said earlier, I think at some point we're going to find out whether it's even possible to run for president without at least taking money from wealthy individuals. And, whether those wealthy individuals are representing corporate interests or not, obviously in some cases they will, in other cases that they won't. Anyhow, Ivan in Bartlett, Illinois. Hey, Ivan, thanks for listening to CPT. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Happy Friday.
Thank you. Happy Friday the 13th.
Greg Palast is a great American.
Yeah, he is.
As a grandfather, I want clean air, clean water, a Green New Deal, and an assault weapons ban for my grandson's sake. And as a Marine Corps vet, Vietnam vet, against the racket of war, I'm for Bernie. As a retired union man on pension, Medicare, Social Security, and VA Agent Orange disability, I'm for Bernie. Now's the time, as Bernie says, for a political revolution that works for the 99%. Corporate welfare.
I get it. I get it. I got it. I get your opinion is registered. Thank you, Elliot in Redding, California. Elliot, what's on your mind?
In 2016, the Congress, the House and the Senate nearly unanimously voted for survivors and the relatives of 9/11 to sue Saudi Arabia.
Correct.
And nobody's been ringing that bell.
I'm sorry, say that again, Elliot?
Nobody's been ringing that bell. They should be saying that all the time.
Yeah.
Now, we have a Muslim ban in place, but Saudi Arabia is exempt from the Muslim ban, the guys that actually bombed 9/11.
Yeah, well, let me add some news to this. This was a federal court. Bill Barr is facing a real challenge here because a number of the plaintiffs in that lawsuit that you're talking about, and this goes back to 2012, are demanding that the names of these two men in Southern California who apparently were Saudi, not just Saudi nationals, but might have had a connection to the Saudi government, were helping out two of the hijackers who were for a while in California. And the suit was originally filed in 2003 this is from a story by Eric Tucker at the Associated Press. The suit filed in 2003 by injured victims, families of victims, and others alleges Saudi government employees knowingly assisted the hijack plot. And they've submitted a request to a federal court in New York which was until September 12th, which was granted. Now, today is the day after September 12th, and I don't know where this is at, but they want to disclose the names, which were redacted from a 2012 FBI document describing assistance given, I'm quoting again from the Associated Press, assistance given by men in Southern California to two of the hijackers. The lawyers believe the person may be a Saudi official they suspect tasked two men in California with assisting the hijackers. And so they're trying to nail this stuff down. They're trying to get this information. And in fact, the 9/11 commissioner said that there was a likelihood, their word, the 9/11 commission, that Saudi government-sponsored charities actually supported the hijackers. So, we still don't have that information. And I think they're going to keep it as buried as they can, as long as they can.
Well, how come Democrats don't bring that up?
Well, I think they should. I really do. Elliot, thanks a lot for the call. We'll be right back. It's 28 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
The 13th. Now, I've always thought that 13 was actually kind of a lucky number. Louise and I started two different businesses on the 13th. One was a Friday the 13th, and they both did pretty well. But I don't know, some people are a little spooky about it. But let's try to make it a really great day for fundraising today, okay? Yesterday we had a good response. Thank you so much for that. After the day before was just like, whoa. almost nothing at all. We really need to keep this network on the air. We need to keep this network going. And the sooner you can make a contribution, the sooner we can kind of wrap up the whole fundraising thing and get back to doing our book reports every day. So please give Free Speech TV a call right now, 877-378-8669, 877-378-8669. I'm guessing you probably watched the debates last night. A lot of the ABC stations in this country are owned by Sinclair, and they were running some really, truly reprehensible ads. One that morphed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's face into skulls killed by the Khmer Rouge, like she's some kind of mass murderer. This is from a Republican-affiliated political action committee. Another was a health insurance coalition of big pharma and big insurance running an ad saying that, calling health insurance health care when it's not. Health insurance is merely the way that you pay for health care. But just completely scrambling the issue and, lying to the American people in the middle of the Democratic debate. Expect to see a whole lot more of this in the media. And then this morning on MSNBC, you had, Joe Scarborough going, these progressives, they're going to destroy the party. Of course, he's a Republican. And on CNN, the message was kind of the same. How dare they pick on, the Republicans, or really it was, how dare they pick on the so-called centrists. You're not going to hear a message that clearly articulates the progressive point of view and the progressive candidates in the corporate media. You'll find it here on Free Speech TV, but the corporate media, no. The corporate media is going to do everything they can, just like they sabotaged Howard Dean. They're going to do everything they can to sabotage the genuine progressives in this race, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And regardless of who you're supporting, I hope you agree with me that that's just wrong. It shouldn't happen. And yet that's going on in our corporate media. So, let's support Free Speech TV and keep honest voices on the air. 877-378-8669. With a $20 gift, you get the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker. With a $50 gift, you get the Change the Channel Free Speech TV tote bag. With a $100 gift, yes, we'll take any functional adult over Donald Trump. That's the T-shirt. It's $50. $100. It's long sleeve, by the way. It comes in sizes small through XXL large. For $150, you'll get an autographed copy of my book, The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America. By the way, the only way to get an autographed copy of this book is either to show up at a book signing, and I'm only going to be doing 2 of those this fall, or donate $150 to Free Speech TV. Now, that's not to say that the signature is, all that much more valuable. It's, it'll get you an extra $5 or $10 on eBay. But, if you're interested in having an autographed copy of the first edition of The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America, this is the only way to get it, unless you show up at a book signing. Right now, we've got one book for Chicago, but that's it. So then we're planning, a couple more, but we'll see. Anyhow, so that's a $150 gift. With a $250 gift, we have a virtual meet and greet and, an online get-together with people. And with a $1,000 gift, come to Portland. 4 people this afternoon are going to be visiting us. They'll be sitting on a couch over here, and presumably most of them, if the past is any predictor of the future, will bring along a friend or their partner or whoever it may be. So we'll probably have 8 people hanging out here and then going to lunch with me this afternoon. They'll get to meet Nate, they'll get to meet Sean, they'll get to meet Joyce. Dave, our engineer, may drop in. There's a great team here. Patrick and Jerry Lynn in Houston help us out. Nigel and Sue in the UK help us out. I know I'm missing somebody. But in any case, we've got Corey, who's helping with the phone systems. We got a lot of really good people putting together this program today. It's not just me, and every day, and it's a labor of love. I mean, we're working our butts off here, but it also requires something, some small amount of money to keep it going. So, and nothing compared to what Free Speech TV needs. Their budget is much, massively larger than ours, and they're still running on this little $3 or $4 million a year budget. So for the entire network with 18 employees and all these shows, it's incredible what they're doing. So a real bang for your buck if you call now and donate to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Your help is very much appreciated and, frankly, very much needed. Let's wrap up the week here on this Friday the 13th with a great contribution. Please. Every day here on the Thom Hartmann Program, Louise and I and our team, Sean, Nate, Shira, Dave, Chase, Sue, Nigel, Ron, we all work to put together the very, very best show we possibly can. And there's an enormous amount of work that goes into the show. And one of the things that comes out of that is, so let's check in with Adam Green, with the co-founder of Bold Progressives, the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, the PCCC. BoldProgressives.org is the website. Twitter at Adam Green or at Bold Progressive. Adam, sorry we got cut off in our first hour. We were having some technical problems. They have been solved, hopefully forever. And great to have you on the line. So your thoughts on the debate last night?
Yeah, I thought it was a good debate. I'm challenging myself to not drink my own Kool-Aid as Elizabeth Warren supporter, but I gotta say, I felt very good about her performance. I thought Bernie did well. On the substance of Medicare for All, I think that was, the beginning of a debate that America needs to see about how much money we would save under Medicare for All, how much money families would save, how much better the service would be. And it was really nice to, for the first time, have Warren and Sanders on the same stage with others who are high profile arguing against it, so that the American people got part of the debate they deserve.
Right.
Overall, I do think that Elizabeth Warren's core challenge in the debate was taking the dynamic that's worked so well for her on the campaign trail, which is marrying her big ideas to her very personal story of struggle growing up poor in Oklahoma, being a single mom in Texas, which I've seen on the ground. When people see this, they love her, and actually getting it across in a very confined environment. I thought she did a very good job at getting across both her ideas and her personal story last night.
Yeah, I agree, and I thought Bernie did a good job too. I'm wondering what one of the things that you guys are famous for. In fact, I still am using the Progressive Change Campaign Committee's survey from 4 or 5 years ago about what Americans want. You did that great one with all the kind of horizontal bar charts of all these. As I recall, it was like 25 or 30 issues. How are your members, people who go to boldprogressives.org and sign up? I'm assuming that's who you're sending your questionnaires and things to. How are people responding to the debate in general and to the Democratic field more broadly?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for mentioning that polling. The Progressive Change Institute, our sister organization, did that and is about to do more of that. We call it the Big Ideas Poll, and it's at thinkbig.us.
Okay.
Flash polling, and people can see all the polling for themselves. And there's more of that to come with so many so many of the big ideas 4 years ago, like a Green New Deal and expand Social Security and debt-free college, which nobody was talking about, are now squarely in the mainstream of public debate. So what we'll be doing is actually testing a lot of the new ideas that are not yet, where progressives are ahead of the public chatter, but where the American people are with us.
Right.
I think that what's beautiful about these debates is that we have two of the best arguers for our side, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, who can just make the case for these issues, talk about the logic of them, talk about the impact on regular people's lives. So last night when Elizabeth Warren was pressed, they were trying to get her to say that taxes will go up. And instead, she was like, what really impacts families is cost. And when you're paying a huge copay at a doctor, or paying a huge amount for a prescription because your insurance won't cover it, or when your doctor is out of network and you're paying more, all of these are costs that add up that will no longer be there under Medicare for All. That's what we need our people to be saying, not just the slogan Medicare for All, but the rationale and impact. And Bernie, same thing. Like, he was so good at making clear that we're on course for spending $50 trillion over the next X number of years, and said, well, we'll only spend 30 if we have Medicare for All, because you eliminate the CEO pay, the hundreds of billions in marketing, the duplicative costs, the administrative costs. And that was great that he made that point. So I think that, we're kind of educating the public through the prism of this presidential campaign by having two such strong, bold progressives out there with Warren and Sanders.
And what are the top issues that you're hearing? Well, what's popping for you?
Well, you mean in the debates, or?
Well, more generally. I mean, you and your sister organization doing all this polling and looking at what's going on. Obviously, healthcare is one of the top ones. What else is in there?
Yeah, so, one big lesson, and I really do encourage people to see the comprehensive polling at thinkbig.us/polling, is, we line up apples to apples how a bunch of progressive issues play. And one trend that I see there is that the bread and butter issues, the issues that regular people experience in their lives, Social Security, student debt, childcare, things like that, pay, jobs, the progressive positions, the very bold progressive positions, the hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars of investment on progressive positions pull through the roof. Expand Social Security 70% to 17%, including the majority of Republican voters, if they're bread and butter layman's issues. The wonkier issues, things like restoring Glass-Steagall, which I support, or a financial transactions tax on Wall Street, which I support. When people hear about it, there's a plurality. More people say they support it than oppose it, but there's a huge amount of undecided voters, which means they just aren't. It's not intuitive to them. Right?
They don't understand the issues.
Yeah, or at least they're not willing to weigh in upon hearing it the first time and say I support or I oppose, which says to me that Warren and Sanders are doing the exact right thing of focusing their campaigns on the really big, systemic, impactful issues in people's lives, right? So childcare, healthcare, public school education, but also and teacher pay, but also making college, eliminating student debt. Like, these are the things that resonate with people. And as the conservative Democrats of the world try to strike fear in the hearts of primary voters by saying, whoa, 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 too bold, we're going to lose the center of the country, our polling consistently shows that more is more. When we polled, just to give you one example, when we polled free community college versus debt-free college at any 2 or 4 year public institution, Berkeley, University of Virginia, Rutgers, you name it, there was way more support for debt-free college at any public university as opposed to just free community college. Right. And that's because more people's lives will be impacted. So I think the conservative Democrats are wrong when they try to tell us to trim our sails, and Bernie and Elizabeth are right.
Yeah, there you go. Adam Green, you're doing God's work, Adam. Thanks so much for coming on the program, and keep it up. boldprogressives.org and thinkbig.us. You can tweet him at Adam Green. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Yeah, good talking with you. And like I said, keep it up. It's important stuff. We'll be back with your calls on Anything Goes Friday here. We're talking broadly about the debate or anything else you want to bring up. As I said, it's Friday, the 13th, no less.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Helping you win the water cooler wars. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's 42 minutes past the hour. And welcome back, Jim in Los Angeles. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I would request you you put Danny Sheehan's book into your book club.
Okay.
I got to meet Greg Palast at KPFK's 60th birthday, as well as Amy Goodman and a bunch. But I wanted to shout out to Greg and Stacey Abrams that maybe they could hire Danny Sheehan before they go to court. He has fought cases in front of the Supreme Court. Just the most brilliant attorney I've ever run across. But the scariest thing for me, Tom, is the voting on the touch screen computers with no paper backup, and they're totally unverifiable. And why? How is that allowable?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we've been seeing these things, from the Ohio election in 2004 forward. Actually, it started before that in a big way, but I think we have seen, and also the Georgia election in 2004. I think we've seen these machines being, frankly, corrupted, probably hacked, over and over and over again. And we need to say enough is enough. Jim, spot on. Thanks a lot for the call. Joey in Springfield, Missouri. Hey, Joey, what's up?
Yeah, hi. Great to talk to you. I wanted to mention, why didn't Bernie say what you have told on the program so long about education? That when these schools stop being funded by property taxes, he could have sold that right up. You've said that so many times. I don't know why he didn't mention it.
I can't speak for Bernie or anybody else. I mean, it's. But education is our intellectual infrastructure. It really needs to be positioned in that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, it should be that it's paid. All of them get the same amount of funding, and not just based on property taxes, so that richer neighborhoods get the better funding.
Yeah. Well, that was put into place back in the late 1800s and the early 1920s, specifically and intentionally to maintain apartheid in the United States, to maintain Jim Crow, so that poor neighborhoods, particularly poor black neighborhoods, would continue to have crappy schools, and that high-end neighborhoods, largely white neighborhoods, would have really good schools. And education, of course, is the foundation of everything. And the people who put this thing together were not idiots. They know that, Joey.
Yeah, hey, number one.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joey. Good to hear from you. We just have about 40 seconds here until we're going to hit this break, so it wouldn't be fair to put somebody on the air. I'll just add to that, though. One of the things that we learned, and this is something that you need to tell everybody you know about, and this is the argument for free college for everybody, is when my dad and my wife's dad came back from World War II, they both went to college on the GI Bill. Louise's dad went all the way through law school. In fact, he became the Assistant Attorney General for the state of Michigan. My dad went to college for 2 years. He wanted to be a history professor when he grew up. He had to drop out because Mom got pregnant with me, and he went to work in a steel mill. Which is how he got exposed to asbestos, which is what ultimately killed him. But the bottom line is that what we know is that investment, for every $1 we invested in that generation of young people who are coming back from World War II, for every $1 we invested in their college educations, we got a $7 return in their paying more taxes than they would have paid if they hadn't had that education. And that's a pretty damn good investment, 7-to-1 return on your money. That's why every other country in the world does this. So every 5 years, the U.S. Department of Agriculture comes out with new guidelines, and we just put up a video over at TomHartmann.com for supporters of our program that talks about how the Trump administration, in this insanely corrupt deal with the $100 billion industry of ultra-processed, high-sugar, high-salt, high-fat foods that is literally killing 700,000 Americans a year, has said, oh, we're going to change the guidelines so that these fast food, high-processed food companies can shovel their stuff into our school lunch programs, into our kids. We're going to change the guidelines so people aren't informed about the importance of, dialing back somewhat on meat and on salt and sugar and all these other things. It's nuts. You can check the whole thing out over at TomHartmann.com. Look for the video for our, the supporters of our program at TomHartmann.com. Welcome back. Let's pick up your phone calls here. Jennifer in Stillwater, Minnesota. Hey, Jennifer, thanks for listening to AM 950. What's up?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, I just wanted to say on the debate, I'm a huge Bernie supporter, and he was fantastic. And if the corporatists, want to have a guarantee that we get rid of the lunatic Trump, that, why in God's name don't they all just vote for Bernie? Then they won't have to worry about us, right?
Well, I think the corporatists are a little worried about
yeah, right,
genuine
exactly.
progressives.
It's kind of a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden, last night he did, Julian Castro was spot on. Joe Biden did say that you could buy in. He said it multiple times. and Julian was right. And then later,
but at one point he said you're automatically enrolled too. Just before that, and that's the piece that the news keeps going back to make it look like Julian Castro was being wrong.
And then Biden says you can be automatically enrolled in Medicaid. Well, I've got news for Joe. If you are a working person and all of a sudden you just lose your job and you need health care, you can't go on Medicaid. People on Medicaid have literally zero assets to qualify. You basically have to be under a bridge to qualify for Medicaid. You cannot have a home, you cannot have a nice car or any savings or anything to be on Medicaid. So you're not getting on Medicaid.
No, I get all that, Jennifer, but I think that unfortunately that Julian Castro came in, loaded for bear. This is his last chance. He's trying to get the same moderate voters that Joe Biden, has, and trying to tear down Joe. Just it worked for Kamala Harris in the first debate. Julian Castro tried to do it last night. I don't think it's going to give him the kind of bounce that it gave Harris, because it came across as snarky. And, as much as I'm concerned about Joe forgetting where he is and what he's talking about, and whether that has to do with his age or not, I honestly don't know. But I don't think most of it's age. I think most of it is that Joe's always been that way, which is why he never got past a Republican or a Democratic primary in running for president in the past. But I think that it hurt Castro. So anyhow, Jennifer.
Well, I'm actually for Bernie.
Yeah, I heard that.
But the thing is I knew that the media would go after him as soon as I heard that he had a sore throat, which instead of praising him for campaigning literally every day since 2015 in front of these huge outdoor audiences, like Bernie said when he was talking to you, he was in front of 10,000 people in Denver the other day. Right. Well, that's why he has a sore throat. And if he was 25 years old, he would have a sore throat.
No, I got it. Jennifer, I need to move along, but thank you for the call. Andy in Redwood City, California, listening on 910 a.m. out of San Francisco. Hey, Andy, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, I was taken aback last night by the Univision reporter who asked Bernie that gotcha question on Venezuela and Maduro. He was kind of conflating socialism with dictatorship and authoritarianism.
Yes. Yeah, Republicans love to do that.
Absolutely. And you've had Greg Palast on the show, and you know what the situation is there. It's the indigenous people against the one percenters.
Yeah.
And it's oil profits, the percentage of the oil profits that Maduro is not willing to give to U.S. petrol companies. That is really why we're trying to do regime change there, not socialism.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I totally get it. Andy, thank you for that. Mike in Grand Rapids, listening on 1680 AM. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the call. Love the show.
Thanks.
I think just one of the curious things I find is the DNC that's all about equality. We've got only 3 of 10 debaters are women, and 7 of the 10 debaters are men. So we've got a white male, basically, group there, and then
Mike, it's a hell of a lot better than it has been in the past. You had a gay man up there. You had, you had an African American woman. You had an African American man. You had a Hispanic man. You had, we're still suffering from gender imbalance, and we're still suffering from racial imbalance. But I think it was just a heck of a lot better than it was. Carrie in New Windsor, New York. Hey, Carrie, what's up?
Hey, I have great news about Greta Thunberg in New York City and the Global Climate March coming up September 20th for the student strike. New York City schools are excusing all absences of students participating on Friday, September 20th. I'm reading from the Twitter on Greta Thunberg's page. Students will need parental consent, and younger students can only leave school with a parent.
That's great. Is that a Bill de Blasio directive, or did that come directly from the schools, or what?
Yes, it came directly from the schools, and right underneath that, it said Mayor Bill de Blasio will be sharing guidance with the parents and educators and students on how they'll be able to participate.
That's great.
And so, like seconds later, I think the New York public school thing put that out. So, but if folks want to act, if they want to go next, it's one Friday from today. Right now, Greta Thunberg with several hundred people in D.C. Doing the Friday for Future thing, and next Friday. It's globalclimatestrike.net if folks want to go and participate. And then I don't know how much time you have, but I have 2 ways for people to act sooner than that if they want.
Those are? Very quickly.
Well, Cory Booker is a vegan just like Greta Thunberg. So they can choose for their very next meal to try not to eat any dead animals. And then in the next couple of hours, there's a public comment period until the 16th to try to stop 2 pipelines in Appalachia and Virginia.
Oh, that's great.
So,
that's great.
Yeah. So,
thanks a lot for all that, Carrie, and thanks for the heads up. And yeah, it's next Friday, so get ready. Margie in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. Hey, Margie, what's on your mind today?
I'd like to get back to the cost of health care, the real cost.
Okay.
I purchased my health insurance through the exchange. I am just over the income limit to receive a subsidy, which is that limit is about $51,000. I am independent contractor, so I pay 20% for taxes, for self-employment taxes, plus by state taxes, which takes my take-home income down to $40,000. I pay $710 a month for my premiums, and I have a $7,000 deductible.
Jeez. So bottom line is you're saying that the Affordable Care Act, while it's better than nothing, is not ringing your bell.
Oh, it gets worse because I just was in the hospital 2 days ago for a medical emergency, and because I was out of state, if I had been admitted to the hospital and was not able to find a secondary hospital with my plan, I would have been responsible for 100% of the cost of care after a predetermined set amount. It would have bankrupted me.
All right. So, Margie, are you saying this by way of advocating for Medicare for all?
We need Medicare for all.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Thanks a lot, Margie. Thanks for sharing your story. Janet in Geneva, Illinois. Hey, Janet, what's on your mind? Thanks for listening to CPT.
I think a way to get the whole country revved up about this election is to have debate teams of young people, Democrats, going out and challenging debate teams in various red states across the country. And I'm sure the media will follow it along. And hopefully our young Democrats who are progressives, hopefully, will be able to win most of the debates.
That would be interesting. We have kids in our family who are in high school, and one of them is on the debate team. I was on the debate team when I was in high school. And, you learn great skills being on the debate team. I've never seen debate teams being essentially mobilized, particularly for partisan purposes before. But I get what you're saying. Do you know anybody who's doing anything like this?
No, I haven't got any connections, but I think it shouldn't be that hard to do. Even we could do like Harry Truman did and put them on trains and send them across the country.
Yeah, well, Harry Truman was, a man of his time. I think today you would want to probably do it on airplanes, particularly since our train system is in such terrible shape because of all the, all our rails have been privatized, or most of them have been privatized, which is why the Amtrak going up and down the East Coast can only go 60, 70 miles an hour, even though the train is capable of 130 or 140 miles an hour. It's the tracks that are slowing it down because of the privatization. Isn't it wonderful? Anyhow, thanks so much for being with us today. Thanks so much for being with us this week. It's, boy, what a fascinating week. And we'll be picking up where we left off on Monday, same time, same place. And in the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It really does require you, yes, you, and all your friends and neighbors and relatives. Get out there, get active, tag. You're it. Have a wonderful, safe, just a super weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit ThomHartmann.com.
We say fight back!